All right, let's see if we're live. Good heavens, what a time. Let me make sure here. Reload this and see if we're up on Rumble. Oh, and the rain is so loud down here. Let's see. Get that volume off. There we go. All right, we're live. Good heavens, this has been crazy. Let me scooch up. Okay, I don't have my little back pillow behind me. If you're on, say hello. I won't call on you or ask you any super hard questions. I'll just put the live chat up here. I'm going to put a message in here so I can see if it works. Capitalize that. All right. If you're here, give me a shout out. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, if you've managed to get on Rumble, let me know. Can I like my own video? Oh, I still liked my own video. Okay, so hopefully, I don't know what that is. Hopefully, and I don't know why it's putting my, let's see if we can fix that. There it is. There's Sonia. Hi, Sonia. Welcome. Did you have trouble getting on Rumble? I've been fighting it for, I don't know why my camera's not right either. It should be, it's got everything behind me backwards, which really, I don't know why it throws me off. Hold on a second. You're sharing a window. What window are you sharing? Sorry, it's just, so let me explain here what's going on. Rumble has decided that they're going to do a bunch of updates, which is super cool, but they decide to do them on Friday. What, like they're going to do them Friday through the weekend. And I'm like, why would you start on Friday? Like if you're going to start on Friday, don't start until like 3 a.m. on Friday. Because I have been trying to get on and get this all ready since 7 o'clock. And I told my husband, I said, you watch by 7:30 when Salty starts, it'll be up. And it came up right before he came on. And I'm like, oh, it just feels like a big screw you to the small streamers, to the content creators that don't have, 100 million people on their channel. And I am thankful for the people who do, because they are the ones who pull people over so other people will find us. So that's good. But I was so mad. I like Twitter put up a notice, or Rumble put up a notice on Twitter at, I want to say 5 or 6 o'clock, which I had to go to how there are those pages, those internet pages you can go to where you can report that something is down, like a website or whatever. So I went there. Hold on, I'm trying to fix my camera here. I went there, and yes, it is on mirror my camera. No, it doesn't change it on there. It's just, that's so weird. So it's okay. This is just curious. Very, very hard time on Rumble. Second day this week. It's been 4 or 5 days this week. Today they announced they were doing a bunch of updates, and that's why that certain things would be out. But when I started trying to get on plenty early, I mean 7 o'clock. When I started trying to get on, I couldn't get on the app, couldn't get on the website, couldn't open it on Apple TV, couldn't open it on Roku. Everything was down. Then Salty came on, and then I was able to get on. Then it kicked me out again, and so I sent a tweet to Rumble, and I'm like, seriously, guys, we're paying. I have to pay to stream, and to me, if I have to pay to stream, if you got, this is the second time I've had technical issues where I almost couldn't get on, and I feel like you should refund some of what I pay a month to be able to stream. Plus, you can't just pay and stream here. You have to pay the monthly fee to stream here. Then you have to get StreamYard, or, I mean, I can't figure out OBS. It's free, but it's so user unfriendly. So, you have to pay for StreamYard or pay for, what's the other one? StreamYard, Restream. There's probably others. But anyway, I've just frustrating to me. And so I sent them a tweet, and I'm like, seriously, guys, you couldn't do this, Friday 2 a.m. to Sunday? Like, nobody's on Sundays. This is when the bulk of the work should be done. But alas, it's just, I am glad they're doing updates. I'm trying not to be pissy. I am super grateful for this platform. Otherwise, we probably would not have a show at all. You guys let me know if the rain is just deafening. I'm going to move this mic over a little bit because we got so much noise down here. Patty. Hi, Patty. Patty says hi, Penny. Well, hi, Patty. welcome to you. Oh, isn't she pretty? I love that blonde hair. Did you guys hear the rain? It's just going to be one of those shows. So just hang in there with me. I'm sorry. I know it's crazy. So there's a bunch to talk about tonight. And if we have time, Catwell K. I'm guessing that's just K. Hi, K. So we've got somebody watching on Facebook. I think Facebook is throttling me because I used to get, granted, this was a while back when I was doing all the COVID broadcasting, I would get thousands of people watching. But then, things started settling down. And probably up until about 6 months ago, I was getting hundreds of views on each live stream. And now I might get two. So I don't know if people aren't getting notifications or who knows what voodoo they use over there. But if we've got time tonight, I watched this really cool video. I don't know if you guys watch. Hold on, let's see if I can find this real quick. Of course, it's not going to come to me. Hold on, I got to open it up in YouTube. You know what? I'm not going to be able to think of his name. I got to go to YouTube and my other thing. But anyway, there's this guy, and he is I guess he's a rabbi. Not sure what he is, actually. I think he's a rabbi, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, he's some guy that knows about the Jewish faith and is well studied and is very prophetic. And I don't normally get into stuff like that, but this guy's really compelling. Let me know if the rain's so loud that you can't hear. Hold on, I'm going to try to find this video. Anyway, I wanted to do like a critique of, or just a conversation about this video. YouTube.com. Go to my library. Give me a second here. Library. There it is. Pause. Okay. This has got to go in its own window. Sorry, it's a little complicated. I've got several different things open. Give me just a minute. Reload, duplicate. No, I don't want to do all of that. I want it to open in a new window. Really? Oh, I know why it won't do it, because it's in another thing. Okay, it's called, I got to find it on the other thing. Just talk amongst yourselves. Jonathan Kahn. His name is Jonathan Kahn. The Stunning Secret Behind the Shooting at the Christian School in Nashville. Is that the one I wanted to watch? Yeah. Okay, now we got to go find it in regular YouTube. Jonathan Kahn. Let's do. I'm finding it. Here we go. Jonathan. No, YouTube. K-O-N-A-T-H-A-N. Is that right? C-A-H-N. That's right. Which one did I say it was? Jonathan Kahn. Nashville. Let's just do Nashville. There we go. Okay, so it's an 11-minute video. I know it's long, but I just am really interested on your all's take on it. Because he talks about kind of the spiritual warfare that we're facing, and if you don't believe in that, that's cool. Just hang out and be like, oh, that's interesting that these people believe these strange things. Hopefully we're still working here. It looks like I'm having some trouble. So frustrating. Just want to make sure I still got you guys. There we go. Okay, what's the talk about this evening? The talk about this evening is where is your white hat? And we're going to talk about ways that, or we're just going to talk about being more active in our community, in our church, in our schools, because if we don't get active, the world is going to go to hell in a handbasket. And so I think a lot of people, I'm guilty of this myself. A lot of people kind of checked out and, raised their kids and did what people do, like they lived their lives. And we assumed that everybody who was taking care of their little part of the world, so like the teachers and hi AJ, like the teachers and the police and the government, we all assumed like they were holding down the fort with the things they were supposed to do, and we're doing all the things we're supposed to do. And so how if you've got like a trusted employee, you can give that employee a task and you don't have to keep going back and checking up on them. That employee is going to take care of it. They're going to do it well. They're actually going to go over and above. It's going to be better than you thought it could be. I thought it would at least be competent. Like I thought the schools would at least be competent and kids would be at grade level and not being indoctrinated and all. Like, I didn't even know the indoctrination thing was going on. I knew there were some definite left-leaning things, but I didn't have any idea it was the mess that it is, which is really disheartening. Hold on, I'm trying to find Rumble. There it is. So weird. This is going to be a, I don't want to use the word, this is going to be a crap show tonight. Hey, at least we're still moving. We're live. If you got on, you're in. I can hear the rain, but I can hear you more. Yeah, I wish I could turn it down. I'm so sorry. I can't. I don't have something that'll buffer something that loud, but it is what it is. Mr. Whitbroad is so tired and not feeling good tonight, so I put him to bed and gave him some medicine, and hopefully he's resting up there, poor guy. Okay, so let's look at this. I'm going to come down here and, oh, I don't have that screen set up. Of course not. I don't want to stop that screen share. This is ridiculous. Stop screen. I'm going to have to do that all over again. That's really frustrating. It's just going to be one thing after another. This isn't actually Rumble. This is just weirdness on StreamYard. Okay, we need, this is Emma's, this one. And share the audio. Share. Okay, that's not the one we're going to watch, but it's in that. This one. Okay, so I want to watch this with you. And it didn't go to the new page, of course. You know what? It's so funny because I thought, you know what? Just screw it. Just screw it. We'll just not do a show tonight. It's going to be a mess. There's going to be all kinds of glitches. And then I thought, no, just, maybe it'll work out. So we'll, like I said, we'll see. This is Jonathan Kahn. Why is it? There it is. Finally. All righty. Okay. Chad says, hold on. Let me put some of your comments up here. I'm falling behind. I want to show that. Stop it. There seems to be an overall feeling of exhaustion in many areas of society. What's the word? Fatalistic or pessimism? Yeah, I see that. I feel like a lot of people are black-pilled right now and are just, and I've got my days, let me tell you. I mean, with this whole shoulder thing, with this whole shoulder thing, it's really it had me really depressed. And it's not like me to be depressed. It's just not like me to be depressed at all. But it's got to be big, and the shoulders really got me bummed out. But good news on the shoulder is that I have a friend, and I won't say who,
to reveal a mystery behind what happened in the
and he was able to get me into one of the best shoulder guys. I mean, probably one of the best shoulder guys in the state. He wrote a textbook on shoulder surgeries. Like, I actually wrote a textbook. So I'm going to be getting into him soon to see what's going on. It's just swollen and it's bruised. It's yellow bruising, so it's not too bad. I got a big old knot right there that is so painful. And that's all I'm going to show you. But I wanted to listen to this thing with Jonathan Kahn because I think it ties into our topic of, where's your white hat? What are you doing? And I think part of figuring out thank you, Chad. I think part of figuring out where your white hat is first of all, knowing what's going on, because you got to know what's going on so that you can figure out like where your gifts are, where your passions are, and then you can kind of figure out where to get plugged in. But you first got to know what's going on in the spiritual realm. And I do feel like we're definitely fighting a spiritual battle here. Beware, it's really bad with Rumble. If you kicked out, you can't get back on. Yeah, Janet, it's why we were running late tonight. It's been nothing. They're doing a bunch of updates is what the issue is. And so hopefully once we're on, we're good. But anyway, we're going to watch this video together and I'll stop it and comment. And if you guys have comments, throw them in because I'm really curious to hear what you think about this guy. And I've watched him for a while. And his name is Jonathan Kahn. He's going to talk about the secret behind the shooting at the Christian school in Nashville.
The shooting at the Christian school in Nashville. A stunning.
Okay. Give me a yes if you could hear that. Because a lot of times you guys won't tell me you can't hear. And I'll watch an entire video and you guys will just start talking amongst yourselves because you can't hear. You have to tell me. Penny, your broadcast is horrible. We can't hear anything. So could you guys hear that? I'll wait. Enlighten's good. Okay, Chad, thank you. All right. Some good feedback tonight, you guys. Thank you so much. Here we go.
Truth you're never going to hear in the news. This is Jonathan Cahn. I'm not in the studio right now. I had no time.
Just so you know, Jonathan Cahn has a, hold on, I'm going to switch this over here real quick so I can see your chats. Jonathan Cahn has, I want to say 2 movies, multiple books. The one book that I've really read is The Harbinger, and it's excellent. It's excellent. And he is so prophetic. I mean, I'll have to find some of his videos to share with you guys because I'm really curious just to discuss them with you because you guys are
But I wanted
great.
to do it right here. What happened in Nashville, that shooting at the Christian school, was horrifying. And though the target was Christian children and Christian adults, there wasn't.
And I'm hoping this won't get me in trouble on YouTube. The rule with YouTube is I can play this video, but not just that. I have to stop and comment during it. So don't get annoyed with me. If you don't add to the content by doing like a critique of what they're talking about, then you're going to get a copyright strike and you're going to get in trouble on YouTube. And I cannot believe they did not take down last week's video. So I feel like we're skating on thin ice. But I will have to stop it periodically to talk about it, or it'll get us kicked off. So don't think I'm being obnoxious.
One single article in the mainstream media speaking of anti-Christian hatred or violence. Why was that? Some of the media actually appear to be blaming Christians for the shooting, since Christians are not generally for transgenderism and the shooter was transgender. Many media outlets didn't even mention that. But months before this happened, a video game came out that was created by a transgender video game designer, encouraging virtual violence and killing against those who are not in favor of surgical altering. In the game, they are to be killed, including a virtual minister. And before the massacre happened, a transgender activist planned Day of Vengeance. A trans Day of Vengeance was planned. The Bible speaks of spirits. In Hebrew, they're called the Shedim. Translated into Greek, it became the word daimonia. We get the word demon from it, demonic. Shedim means the destroyer, those who bring death. When they possess a person, they seek to remove the individual from his or her nature and purpose, whether that means their humanity, their gender, their sexuality, their personhood. That's how they begin destroying him or her. The possessed person becomes a danger to others and to himself or herself, harming others, harming themselves. The Bible says that the Shedim, or the daimonia, the demonic spirits, were behind the gods of the ancient world. 2,000 years ago, the gods were cast out of Western civilization.
So I bring that, the reason, what made me think of this and kind of go searching was, AJ says the content creator can strike you. The content creator should strike you if you take their whole video. People do this to me all the time. They take my videos, interviews I do on other people's channels, generally about my near-death experience, and then they rip them, like they don't add them to a playlist. That's how you put something on your YouTube channel, or on your YouTube account. You put it on as a playlist. You can't just rip somebody's video and post it on your channel like it's yours. That's copyright infringement. And I do go after those people and take those down. I first offer to do an interview with them, which I think is super generous considering they just infringed my copyright. And generally they just get nasty with me and they're like, no, I don't want an interview. I'm using the video. What are you going to do about it? And I'm like, all right, well, here we go. But yeah, I'm sensitive to that because I don't want to just take his content. I want to add more to it because otherwise I could have just put up the link for you guys.
Civilization by the power of Jesus. But behind the gods are spirits. And Jesus gave a warning, which can be translated into modern terms to America and to the world as this: any culture, any nation, any civilization that's been delivered of these spirits or gods, if it should ever turn away from God, these spirits, these gods, these demonic entities will come back to repossess it, repossess the culture, repossess the people. America has cast out God. Now we are witnessing the taking over of our culture by these spirits. That's why what we're watching is so irrational. That's why it's so demonic. When I wrote The Return of the Gods, I wrote these words. I said, if the gods or spirits that were cast out with the coming of Christianity returned, would they not come back with a vengeance? And would not their vengeance be focused on those who cast them out? Well, who cast them out? Christians did.
Okay, so the reason I want to stop right there is because there's this verse in the Bible where Jesus comes upon this man who is possessed, and the demons in him. I think Jesus asks what their name or something is, and he says, like something like, "Our names are many, for we are legion." And so when there is this possession of a person, it's more than one spirit. And I'm guessing that like maybe each vice has a spirit attached to it, you know. So why you have to be really careful with vice. You know, we kind of use our teen years to vice it up, you know, and then some of those things stick, and then that becomes a force in your life that is harmful to you. And you know, we may not go as far as to consider it demonic, but it's definitely spiritually harmful. Um, so I was really curious about, could this be happening today? Could we be having people who are having spirits that are overwhelming them and totally changing their character? And so that's why I wanted to look at this.
So these returning spirits, demonic spirits, will turn their vengeance, their fury against Christians. Now think of what happened in Nashville to those Christian children and adults. I wrote of the plans of demonic spirits to attack Christians and the return of the gods. It came out in September 2022. 7 months later, the attack took place in the Christian school in Nashville. Now, when I wrote the book, I revealed 3 central gods or spirits that are now taking possession of America and the West. I call them the Dark Trinity and the Return of the Gods, spirits that lie behind everything. What's happening to your children? One of them was called the Enchantress. In the book, I reveal that ancient inscriptions concerning this goddess, it says that she turns a man into a woman and a woman into a man. This is the god or the spirit that alters gender, transitions man into woman, transitions woman into man. The inscription also reveals that she's the god of parades that celebrate the bending of gender. And she especially possessed a culture in 1 month. Which month? The month of June.
Does that just blow your mind? Am I the only one who's blown away by that? That there was a god who was said to be over the gender, and she was the god of parades, and her month was the month of June? What the heck? That haven't transitioned fully or don't. Chad says demonic souls are souls that haven't transitioned fully or don't have spirit guides or have refused them. No. Demonic souls are directly from the evil one. You know, so a soul that hasn't transitioned, which I don't know how much I believe that, but a soul that hasn't transitioned is not a demon. A soul that hasn't transitioned is just kind of in limbo. And I don't, you know, I've seen a lot of ghost things. I don't know much about that, but no, it is different. You guys are so...
From ancient times. She was the goddess of pride, and she possessed...
She was the goddess of pride. She had the month of June. She was over the genders, and she was the parade goddess. I mean, it almost sounds like they knew this when they started this movement, and they're like, that's a good god to have. Let's do that.
She had a priesthood called the Asinu or the Kalu. They were men who dressed up and acted as women. Some of them were surgically transitioned with organs cut off. One of the ancient transcriptions I put in the book describes the transitioned men dancing in front of the goddess, carrying scalpels as if to celebrate their transition. The spirit is taking over our culture and our children as I speak. It's not about the people, it's about the spirit behind them. The spirits are as much against those whom they possess and use as the ones who oppose them. The word Shedim means destroyer. These spirits bring destruction. They're always after the children from ancient times to now, whether killing babies in the womb or outside of the womb, they target children, and they target Christians now. Christian children are all the more in their crosshairs of the goddess and of the spirits. The goddess took possession of her priesthood. So the men who appeared as women and the women...
Okay. Interesting that this is a goddess. How many times have you all heard people out in front of the Supreme Court protesting, or actors or actresses or, whoever saying the goddess, thank goddess this or thank goddess that. I just thought that was interesting.
Women who appeared as men were possessed by the goddess. But Jesus warned that when the spirits come back, they come back worse. So now
I don't think he has a stance on it. Chad asks, I can't tell what his stance is on this sort of anti-trans. It's not so much anti-trans. People are going to do what they're going to do, and I'm not, and I'm not against them in any way. You people do what they're going to do all the time. I just don't want them involving me or children in it. Period. That's it. If you want to be trans or whatever, I mean, if you wanted be a furry, I don't care. That's your thing. You do your thing. But you don't get to force everybody else to endorse it and affirm it and embrace it and allow it into the lives of our children, even when we say no. That's where the rub is. There's always going to be people that are going to do things that are very non-conventional. And a lot of times that's some spiritual issue in them that they're really struggling with. That's why I'm not one of those people that's going to make fun of trans people or gay people or lesbians or anything like that, because I feel like people are going through something and they might not even be aware. In fact, I'm sure they probably aren't, that they are going through a spiritual battle, that there are powers and principalities that are present in this world and that may be acting on them. And maybe this is why their spirit wants to reject the body that they live in. That makes a lot more sense to me than this idea that they're just born in the wrong body. Like, saying that you're born in the wrong body would indicate that there was a right body that you should have been born into. And if you don't believe in God, how would that even be possible? I mean, if this is just all happenstance, then there's no will for which body you would be born to. It would just be, a crapshoot. But when they say that I was born in the wrong body, that would mean that there was some entity who had intended you for a different body that for some reason you didn't get into, and now you're in the wrong body, and so you have to alter yourself to be in the body that you were supposed to be in the first place because God messed up. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
now that same spirit that bends gender is seeking to possess an entire generation of children, to confuse them, to start transitioning them, to surgically remove their organs. How could we do that to them? What could possess somebody to do that? A spirit could possess them. The trans woman shooter was one of the confused souls of this generation. Now, could there have been an actual demonic possession behind what happened at that Christian school? And could there have been an actual sign that what happened really was from the spiritual realm behind the news? In the gospel account of the demoniac or the demonically possessed man, it goes like this. It says, they came to the other side, the disciples, with Jesus, of the Sea of Galilee, into the region of the Gerasenes. When he got out of the boat, immediately a man from the tombs with an unclean spirit met him.
This is it.
He was living among the tombs, and nobody was able to bind him anymore, not even with a chain or with shackles. The chains had been torn apart by him, and the shackles were broken into pieces, and nobody was strong enough to subdue him. Constantly, night and day, he was screaming among the tombs and in the mountains, cutting himself with stones. He dwelt in the tombs. The tombs would have been caves in the rocks. They were hollows, hollowed out space. He dwelt in the hollow. In the Matthew's account, it says the demon-possessed man or men were so fierce that nobody could pass that way. He terrorized the people of the town. He presented a danger of physical harm, and he harmed himself by cutting his body. A trans day of vengeance was planned.
Sorry.
The Bible says that the Shedim, or the Da'i, repossessed the culture, repossessed the people. America has cast out God. Now it says that the spirits are as much against those whom they possess. Women. Some of them were surgically transitioned with organs cut off. One of the ancient transcriptions I put in the book describes the transition men dancing in front of the goddess, carrying scalpels as if to celebrate their transition. The spirit is taking over our culture and our children as I speak. It's not about the people, it's about the spirit behind them. The spirits are as much against those whom they possess and use as the ones who oppose them.
So I'm glad we kind of went backwards a little bit. That's a really good point. I want you guys to take hold of, okay? Yes, there's a lot of there's a lot of rhetoric on both sides. But ultimately, we are called to better behavior. We are called to not um, be derogatory and hateful and cruel to those people. And I think it becomes easier once we understand that there is a spirit involved here, and that that person of their own volition would not behave that way, but that this spirit has gained entry. And so that should help you feel compassion in your heart, because that could be any one of us, right? If any one of us, went down a path and started exploring something, we could open ourselves up for this sort of spiritual attack. And so, as upset as I was about the Nashville shooter, when he said that, I thought, "Oh my gosh, how awful it must be." I always felt really sorry for people who were schizophrenic, because how terrifying would it be? I would almost, if I had to choose between schizophrenia or cancer, I would choose cancer, because how awful would it be to be tormented by your own mind in such a way that you can't control yourself anymore? How awful that must be for them. And then the medications you have to be on for it make them feel horrible, so they don't want to take them. What a difficult life. And schizophrenia actually eats the brain. It's kind of like Alzheimer's. You will actually see Swiss cheese of a brain when a schizophrenic person dies. And so it gave me some compassion. I'm like, okay, if this is a spiritual thing, then there's something we can do, right? And you may not see the fruit of it, maybe even in your lifetime, but that doesn't relieve us of our responsibility to pray, and and I mean pray for these people. Pray that that spirit would be lifted. um Pray that God would restore our land, and all of this. There's so many things, right? Chad says it's an awful disease. Many of them attempt suicide many times. The same with trans people. The rate of suicide attempt or suicidality after transition is just as high as it was before. So this idea that the transition, and a lot of them are just, they have such dysphoria that it's so bad. I mean, how bad would it have to be for you to cut off your genitals? Really bad. It must be really bad. And I'm like, okay, for you to be in such mental torment, and it kind of makes sense to me, because you have people who are suffering with depression or anxiety or whatever, and they'll cut on themselves. And that wasn't a thing when I was young. At least I didn't know of anybody. And it's really common among youth right now that are struggling with depression. And so they self-harm. And so to me, this seems like self-harm on a grander scale, by people who are naive or who are fooled by the spirit, thinking this is going to be the answer for them. And that is tragic. That is tragic. And it is even more tragic that our government has been possessed by some sort of spirit that is now saying, okay, well, if you don't want to let your kid do this, we'll just take your kid away. I mean, stealing your children and defiling them and uh, mutilating them. If that's not a spirit, I don't know what that is.
The word Shedim means destroyer. These spirits bring destruction. They're always after the children from ancient times to now, whether killing babies in the womb or outside of the womb. They target children, and they target Christians now. Christian children are all the more in their crosshairs of the goddess and of the spirits. The goddess took possession of her priesthood. So the men who appeared as women and the women who appeared as men were possessed by the goddess. But Jesus warned that when the spirits come back, they come back worse. So now that same spirit that bends gender is seeking to possess an entire generation of children, to confuse them, to start transitioning them, to surgically remove their organs. How could we do that to them? What could possess somebody to do that? A spirit could possess them. The trans woman shooter was one of the confused.
And so think about the parents who give into this, who don't want to give into it, right? Be better off to have a live son than a dead daughter. Think of what it must be for them to have a spirit hold their child hostage like that, and to have to say to yourself, if I don't allow this, I could lose my kid. That's fear. Fear doesn't come from God. So if there is an element of fear being used against you, I'm not talking healthy fear, like don't run in the road, don't go stand next to that panel van in the dark. I'm talking real, this fear that the devil can put on us, and we can refuse it. We can say, no, I refuse to be afraid of that. And I don't, part of me, there's this part of me that I don't understand why this one size fits all approach. See, that lends me to think it's a spirit, or leads me to believe it's a spirit. Because generally, if there is a medical or a psychiatric problem among practitioners, you'll see all different kinds of ways of treating that. But for this, we have only one way. You have to transition them: puberty blockers, then hormones, then surgery. That's the only answer. And any other answer could get your kid taken away. So to me, if they have to start kidnapping your children, there is probably an evil spirit involved.
Souls of this generation. Now, could there have been an actual demonic possession behind what happened at that Christian school? And could there have been an actual sign that what happened really was from the spiritual realm behind the news? In the gospel account of the demoniac, or the demonically possessed man, it goes like this. It says, they came to the other side, the disciples, with Jesus, of the Sea of Galilee, into the region of the Gerasenes. When he got out of the boat, immediately a man from the tombs with an unclean spirit met him. He was living among the tombs, and nobody was able to bind him anymore, not even with a chain or with shackles. The chains had been torn apart by him, and the shackles were broken into pieces, and nobody was strong enough to subdue him.
Okay, and I want to say this. Janik says, I have no issues with trans people. However, I feel these people are confused and they're being taken advantage of. Yes, I agree. And what I think is really interesting is we were talking about fear. AJ said fear doesn't come from God. So this, what do they do? What do they call anybody who disagrees with this lifestyle choice? They call you transphobic. You are fear. You are fearful of this. And phobic, the word phobic doesn't mean fear. The word phobic actually means irrational fear. So they're now telling you have an irrational, crippling fear. You know, a phobia interferes with your ability to live your life. Now, whatever your issue is on trans people, if you don't feel like this is an edifying lifestyle, that is now the same as being having an unrealistic fear, having it cripple you in your day-to-day life, not being able to do the things you could normally do because you're so fearful of trans people. No, they're putting that title on you, transphobic. You are fear. You have fear. And we do not have fear. Fear doesn't come from God, and we're of God, and so we are not fearful. We're logical. We're rational. This doesn't make sense. Let's not remove the organs of our children. Let's let them go through puberty, since we know that these kids who are gender dysphoric, and it's very common. I had some gender dysphoria growing up. Kids who are gender dysphoric, once they go through puberty, it's something like 90% then are able to identify with their own gender. They just kind of need their brain washed in that natural hormone that's in them. And if you'll let that take place, most of these kids are going to be just fine.
Constantly, night and day, he was screaming among the tombs and in the mountains, cutting himself with stones. He dwelt in the tombs. The tombs would have been caves in the rocks. They were hollows, hollowed out space. He dwelt in the hollow. In the Matthew's account, it says the demon-possessed man or men were so fierce that nobody could pass that way. He terrorized the people of the town. He presented a danger of physical harm, and he harmed himself by cutting his body. So the shooter at the Christian school sought to bring destruction to others and then to herself. She wrote a note saying, I plan to die this day. The demonic spirits bring destruction. The demoniac, or the demon-possessed man, dwelt in the caves, the tombs, the hollows. So the demon-possessed person dwelt in the hollows. The one who killed the Christians that day was named Audrey Hale. What does Hale mean? Her name means the one who dwells in the hollows. The killer's name, the Bible reveals the demon-possessed dwell in the hollows. The name of the killer actually means the one who dwells in the hollows. Could there be even more signs of a dark mystery taking place in the spiritual realm that you're never going to hear on the news? In the book of Revelation, it is revealed that the number of the beast, the Antichrist, is 666. I'm sure you've heard of it. You see it in movies like The Omen, about demonically satanic possessed people. 666. The number 6 is linked to man. Man was created on the sixth day in the form of 3. 666, the number of God. So 6 appears as 3. It's man as God. The beast, the Antichrist. How many people died? How many people, Christians, were killed by this woman named Hale, the one who dwelt in the hollows? She killed 6 people. She killed 3 adults. How old were they? One was 60, the other 61, the other 60. 6, 6, 6. They were all just about 60. Did she know that? I'm sure she didn't, but the spirits do. 6, 6, 6, the mark of the beast, the number of Satan, as in one who is possessed by a demonic spirit. The killer had no idea, but the spirits that possessed have an idea. In the worship of Satan, signs and numbers are often inverted, as in turned upside down, as the enemy is an inverter. How many children were killed? That was the adults, 666. How many children were killed? 3. What were their ages? 9, 9, 9. What happens if you turn it upside down? 6, 6, 6. 999 is the inversion of 666. So 3 adults, 666. 3 children, the inverted 666. The shooter.
Now, you may struggle with the inversion of those numbers being 666, but that is a common thing with demonic spirits. As they invert things, they reverse them. It's kind of a mirroring effect. So I'm going to give him some latitude there.
Had no idea. The spirits did. The changes that are taking place in our nation and Western civilization and the world are not natural. They're not rational. They're part of a mystery in the realm of the spirit. They're not just possessing troubled individuals. They're possessing celebrities, pop stars, organizations, institutions, media, school systems, government, leaders, cultures, our culture. And for you who are a follower of God, you're a Christian, you're a true believer, be warned, they're after you. And even if you're not, if you're created in the image of God, they're after you. They are affecting everyone. Every one of you watching this right now, you're dealing with it in one form or another, whether you know it or you don't. They're after you. You're a target. That's why I wrote The Return of the Gods, to reveal and to arm those who would be armed for what's coming. There's only one power and force that's able to overcome these things. It's the power of God, the presence of Yeshua, Jesus, the Redeemer, and that's why you need him in your life. We war not against flesh and blood, it says, but against powers, principalities, rulers, spiritual forces in high places. God is greater. Make sure you're right with him. Make sure he's in your life. Make sure you received him for real. Make sure you're born again. You're saved. And if you don't want to miss the messages that are going to come forth from this site in the future, make sure you press subscribe. And until next time, this is Jonathan Kahn saying, be strong in the power of his might. Shalom.
What do you guys think about that? Wow. I mean, it really, really struck me, because I've been, let me stop that. There we go. I've been praying about this, and I, just with the little bit of knowledge I have, I am by no means a Bible scholar. But I knew that God is not the author of confusion. So if confusion has overtaken someone's life, and confusion is you've got a group of people being pushed by a spirit who are trying to confuse the rest of us, aren't they? They're making you question your own thinking. Like, just there's little things to speak about with the confusion. Like when I'm reading an article about somebody and I don't know how people identify, I don't really follow pop culture, and so I'll be reading an article and I'll get like 3/4 of the way down the page, and they'll say they were at McDonald's, right? And so I'm like, so I go all the way back up through the article and try to figure out who the second person is that they're talking about. And they're not. And while I get that a female may identify as a male may identify as a female, or maybe not identify as either, how does being plural fit in? That doesn't make any sense to me. That this is a great spiritual warrior summary is how I see it too. I see it everywhere. Yeah, Michelle. So part of this is we have to recognize what's going on. So now look what we know. Look what we figured out together. And you guys may have already known this, but I always kind of am walking through my life with you guys. We now know that there is this goddess, which I didn't know. And now that I know that, I'm like, oh, okay, well, this makes perfect sense then. Because it wasn't making sense to me. I'm like, why would, I don't understand why we would take simple things like, a child, like a little girl not wanting to start wearing a bra. I did that. My cousin gave me an ace bandage to wrap my boobs because in the 4th grade, bam, they were there, and the boys couldn't leave them alone and were snapping my bra and making comments and stuff. And it was so humiliating for me as a 9-year-old, um, that my cousin gave me this binder, that's ace binder, and she's like, just wrap yourself up and then you don't have to wear the bra, then they can't snap the bra. And I so was hating becoming a girl because of being picked on by the boys. Well, now that would be considered gender dysphoria. I mean, I guess it is gender dysphoria to some extent, but when my mom found out what was going on, she's like, "You can't do that. You have to wear the bra to school. We're not going to bind you. This is a natural part of growing up, and it is hard, and it's embarrassing, and we all go through it, and it's okay. You're going to be okay. Pretty soon the other girls are all going to bloom, and it's going to be all of you, and it won't feel so lonely." But it was tough for me. Well, right now I might face a very different fate. And if my parents didn't know better, and if doctors were involved and were telling my mom, if we don't go ahead and transition her into being a boy, she could end up killing herself. I don't know what my mom would have said to that, especially with the societal pressures that we have today. So there's that. Um, Janik says this family she was from was very religious. She started changing right after she went into college. Yeah, I wondered, she seemed very much like, I don't think she knew these kids. She may have known the adults, but I doubt seriously she knew the children. And what has to like just being depressed? I don't, depressed people don't generally kill people. So are these people angry? I'm just curious to know what that emotion is when you walk into some place with a gun, and I would shoot somebody to keep them from killing me or somebody I loved or strangers even. But I couldn't just look at a little kid and shoot him. I don't think a depressed person could do that either. And so all that leaves is mental illness, right? Because most people have rational thinking. And even if they had that thought, they would think, oh my goodness, that's terrible. Where did that come from? Of course, I'm not going to do that. But she couldn't. And more of the people that we're seeing doing the shooting, and this isn't to say that all transgender people are violent but we do know that people who are transgender have a higher incidence of other psychiatric problems, depression, anxiety, uh, borderline personalities, which is different than multiple personalities, narcissistic disorders, things like that. So we know autism, and it makes sense to me if you're autistic and you don't socially, things are so difficult for you, and then someone comes along and says, oh, you might be trans, and they're like, that's why I can't relate to anybody, that's why I feel like people can't relate to me, I must be in the wrong body. It's kind of like people will have some sort of something on their body and they'll start Googling it, right? They're like, oh my gosh, it's Timbuktu disease. How did I get Timbuktu disease? What the heck? And they'll become obsessed with the idea that they have this Timbuktu disease. And we're like, no, we've checked everything. I had one gal when COVID was really bad, and she had COVID and gotten over it. And she's like, I've been to the ER 9 times this week. And I'm like, what? Why do you keep going to the ER? Because I'm sure it's still in me somewhere. Could it be in me? Could it be hiding? And she told me, she's like, I'm a hypochondriac. And I'm like, oh, this is like the worst thing for a person who's suffering with hypochondriasis, because they've pushed so much fear with this. So not only does she have this standard fear that something's wrong with her, but now we've got this new thing that they've, made into basically a movie. It's just so they so terrified us, and how difficult that was for her. And she could not. And I remember I said to her one day, I said, look, you've been messaging me for 4 hours, like nonstop. Where are your kids? And she didn't even answer me. She just went over it. And I'm like, you realize you're alive and you're not sick. Someday you could be sick and be dying, but today you're not. We're all going to die someday, but today you're not going to die. So how about we just live today? And then tomorrow we'll live tomorrow. Let's just set that anxiety down. Let's pretend it's like a suitcase and let's set it down. And you can set it down where you can see it, because I know you're scared to put it down. Set it down where you can see it, and then just go through your day. Just live your day. And if you need to pick it back up for a second, that's okay, but you got to put it back down. I'm very much about using physical objects to help us with anxiety. You know, we talked about that with grieving, the box that I made for that family. You know, and you pull the box down once a week after your loved one dies, and you sit down with your little girl and you go through, this is the advice I gave this family, and you go through the box, set the egg timer for 30 minutes, and laugh and cry and scream and yell and remember all the wonderful things together. And then when the timer goes off, put everything back in the box, put the box back on a shelf. Then you have control. You have a constructed way to handle your grief so that it doesn't eat you alive. And you can handle it in small batches and then put it away. And then go do something with your kid that you and your wife would have loved to have done with your kid. And it's just great advice. And so I think that about anxiety too. A lot of people have anxiety and they're anxious about letting go of the anxiety, right? They're like, oh, I can't not worry about that, because then what if it happens? And I'm like, well, what if it happens even though you're worrying about it? So if it's going to happen either way, do you think worrying will stop it? And rationally they say no, but physically they're struggling with that, right? So I'm like, okay, let's set it down. Let's pretend anxiety is a suitcase. Let's set it down where you can see it. You can always pick it back up. And for some reason that gives people comfort that they don't have to stop being anxious, because I think they live under this false impression that if they worry about it, it won't happen. Stephen King wrote in the front of one of his books that the reason that he writes about the boogeyman getting other people's kids is so they won't get his. And that's foolish. But you see where that kind of messed up thinking comes from. So I just thought that was interesting. I would like to know if she's taking any kind of hormones as well, because when I first had and I know I totally overshare, but I have to relate what I know. When I first had my hysterectomy, I want to say about within 6 months, I felt horrible. And generally, when you have a total hysterectomy, your pituitary will kick in and start making progesterone and or triggering the making of, I think, progesterone and estrogen and pregnenolone and testosterone. Women make testosterone in small amounts. And if a woman doesn't make testosterone, she can get very sick. It does things in your body, and you need it in the right amount. You can have heart problems. You can have a stroke. There's all kinds of, people think sex hormones are just sex. They're not. They're not at all. That's just part of what they do. And so they started me on testosterone, but it was too high of a dose. And I was flying off the handle at everyone. And I mean, I feel like you guys know me well enough to know I'm not a person of hot temperament. I'll get mad about injustice, but I don't just yell at people, or I'm not one to fight or argue. To me, most things aren't worth it. The things that I fight for are very important, but I'm not going to fight over piddly stuff. I always ask myself if I'm arguing or going to argue with someone, I say to myself, if we both walked out of here and died, or if I walked out and died, or he walked out and died, would I think that argument was worth it? And that's how I weigh whether I should have a fight or not. So I'm pretty even keeled, but boy, they put me on that testosterone and I wanted to fight. I really wanted to. I had so much physical something, it was just like this all the time. I don't know how to put a word on it better than that. And I wanted to hit people. Like it was to the point, and I became much more visual, which helped me understand men. I became much more visual, and I would like visualize myself just hitting somebody and like what that would feel like. And so I called the doctor and I'm like, you got to do something, because I'm going to end up killing somebody. And I wasn't being serious, but part of me was thinking, wow, how much worse could this get? And I felt so much sympathy for boys as they're going through puberty. I understood why my boys were such an emotional mess and angry and slamming doors and pushing each other, and because they hadn't been aggressive before and weren't raised that way. But that hormone kicks in, and I don't know how much hormone you've got to give a woman to make her a man, but I would imagine it's enough to cause aggression. Janix, yeah, if she were taking testosterone, wouldn't that make her aggressive, especially after her whole life her body's telling her she's female, right? Well, and the other thing is I watched an interview with Riley Gaines today, and Riley Gaines, is that right? I think that's her name, the swimmer from University of Kentucky. She was on a podcast, and I was watching her in, where was I going with that? Oh, she was talking about Leah Thompson, and it was interesting when I looked into the rules for transgender people who a transgender female who wants to participate on the female team, the requirement was that Leah Thomas have a testosterone level, I think it was no higher than 250. Well, 250 is normal for a man. It's low normal, but it's normal. So having a testosterone level of 250, because you're suppressing testosterone and taking estrogen, doesn't make you a woman. You still have the testosterone level of a man. It's on the low end, but it's still normal. It's on the low end of normal. So you are still competing against a person who has a normal level of testosterone for a man. And that doesn't take into consideration. People are like, well, why do you care about what swimmers do? And I'm like, well, I care about it because these women have dedicated their whole lives to training for this sport, and now they can't win. And they're going to lose scholarships, they're going to lose opportunities. It's going to keep them from being able to afford to go to college. A lot of people who are into sports are training so hard because part of that training and being very good at what you do helps them get noticed and get paid, get their college paid, and they couldn't afford to otherwise. So they pour themselves into this route of getting into college. And if you let men take over women's sports, women will not get scholarships in sports because they will go to men. And the women who do, you've got a volleyball player who's nearly killed by somebody spiking a ball. You've got these women that fight MMA and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, wasn't a woman killed in that by a man? And still that's not enough. It's like, no, you can't say that trans can't be in MMA. Yes, a woman died, but what about inclusion? And I'm like, whoa, hold on. So Don and I were talking today, what's the answer? And I said, well, here's an idea. You could let trans men who believe they're women, so trans women, you could let them swim on the women's team. I would give them a different locker room, or I would at least ask them, hey, be considerate. You're new to being a woman. These women have been women their whole lives, and they are not comfortable undressing in front of a man. So we just ask that you would come early and get ready and be at the poolside when the girls get here to undress. That is a compromise. You may not like it, but it's a good compromise, right? Then you handicap all the females like you do in bowling, right? So every female, based on where she's ranked or what her time is, all that stuff, she gets a handicap, and that then puts her on equal footing with the trans person. I guarantee you, once you do that, you will see less trans people competing in women's sports. Because what's the point if you can't win? You just well stay with the team you were with. But anyway, she was showing stuff from their respective. So Leah, when she was a swimmer, had all of the genitalia you would expect a male to have. Well, apparently Leah is dating a trans woman, so they're both men, and they both went in and they had just their testicles removed. And the girls on, the one person is on showing them in a jar, which is crazy because I couldn't get my gallbladder given to me. They're like, no, we're not allowed to do that. That's got to go to pathology or whatever. But they gave them their balls in a jar. And so I'm like, okay, wait. So you have a penis, but you've removed your testicles because they don't want to make any more testosterone. And I'm like, okay, well, why would your doctor not tell you that your pituitary will kick in and make testosterone? It's not going to stop your testosterone production. It'll lessen it, sure. But it's not going to stop it. And I thought, they're not even giving them proper information. It's just crazy. And I don't know. I'll have to do some research because I'm really curious what sexual function would be like just removing the boys. I don't know. Janik says, see if she was taking something along with people telling her she's not a girl, right? And she knows deep down these people telling her you're not female are wrong. I think, hold on, I'm trying to slide down this. What is, oh, for Pete's sake. Okay, well, let me start again. See if she was taking something along with people telling her she's not a girl, and she knows deep down these people telling her you're not female are wrong. I think she just snapped. Well, I just think that the testosterone alone would be enough to make you snap. I was really worried about myself. Kalo, is that right? I hope I'm saying that right. Mental illness and or pharmaceuticals. I would just about guarantee, and I want to say that her family said that she was under psychiatric treatment. So I'm guessing she would have been on perhaps an antidepressant, maybe an antipsychotic. Those get prescribed all the time to people who aren't psychotic as a mood stabilizer. I just don't like that. And we know that they can cause homicidal ideation, suicidal ideation, and people to act out on that ideation. Hi, Mark Davis. How quickly did they put people on some kind of mood enhancer drugs, especially kids, never learn to cope with life adversity? Well, and here's the thing, depression is a very real thing among young people. I became suicidally depressed, had a plan, had taken my parents' gun and was going to kill myself that evening. And I'll tell the rest of that story at some point. But I wasn't on any kind of pharmaceuticals or anything. And I remember talking to my mom, and we were talking about, should we go to the doctor and consider getting on something? But my mom was super smart about that. She's like, look, you're depressed because we're moving all the time. And I was in high school. My dad was in the nuclear industry. And so he was an inspector or quality, like over the inspectors for the construction. And we were just moving. Like when a plant went online, we weren't so much needed there anymore. And we would move to the next one and move and move and move. I think I went to 6 different high schools. Um, and that is situational cause for depression, and that doesn't need to be medicated. It needs to be handled in a way. Why is my sound weird? It needs to be handled in a way that um, I guess would address those situational issues. Like counseling would have been really helpful because I was really struggling with making friends and being the odd person out because I was new. And um, it's just hard to find your peer group when you stay in the same place. We'll keep moving around, and it's nearly impossible. And it's impacted our family to this day. My mom has a horrible time making friends because she just got out of the habit because they moved so much, and she didn't want the hurt of losing people. And I did the same thing, and so it's something to this day we both battle. So I can see where this would be a very tough situation, as a person who's now being told you're transgender. And if you think about it, all those things could have happened to me. And I think that's why it strikes so close to home for me, is because, growing up a tomboy and um, binding my chest because I was so embarrassed about having boobs in the 4th grade. And I mean, they were noticeable, they just all of a sudden, any of you who has daughters, you're like, all one day you're like, whoa, where'd those come from? And it's just shocking. And especially, if you're 12 or 13, that's one thing, but when you're 9, it's something quite different. So anyway, I just thought that was I'll probably watch it a couple more times just so that I can dissolve it all. Not dissolve, absorb. Um, because I think that just that understanding, doesn't that give you doesn't that kind of open up your mind to what's going on? Like every once in a while I'll stumble on, actually happens a lot, I think, because I'm open to new information. Um, but every once in a while I'll stumble on something and I'm like, oh, now it makes perfect sense. Um, now I understand. Now I feel compassion. And I was wondering why, as somebody who believes in God and loves God and has met God, why was I having so much anger? I knew that wasn't from God. And I kept putting it off to, well, because they're coming after our kids, because they're naked the whole month of June and I shouldn't have to see that. I can't do that. Why should you be allowed to do it? We have obscenity rules and we have decency rules for a reason. And so I think I was angry about that. And then I was putting off that negative emotion on how I felt about trans people. And I was checking it constantly. I'm very careful to check myself. And I was checking it and I was thinking, okay, your emotional feelings about this person, you've got to be careful not to put that on that person. If you're angry or you're upset about what's going on with that person, well, now that I understand that this is spiritual and that something out of their control has taken hold of them, um, or maybe it's not out of their control. Maybe they don't understand that something has taken hold of them, so they don't know how to fix it, right? So it's like somebody who's depressed kills themselves, and then people are angry. They're like, how could you do this to our family? And they didn't know another way. They were having this terrible thing go on in them, and then that thing, whatever that spirit was, convinced them that the only way to make the pain stop or to make the numbness go away was to end it. And they became convinced by that spirit of death. And that's what happens with suicides. People go through whatever trauma, and that gives a spiritual foothold to this evil, and then that evil starts slowly working on them. And you can watch it happen. I've seen it so clear. I don't know why I didn't put it together with trans people. But you can watch it. You can watch them just start really projecting how negatively they think of themselves and how pessimistic their outlook of the world is, and why am I here, and I wish I were never born. And you can just watch it start spiraling until eventually they kill themselves. It's I mean, I think a lot of times people are shocked when someone commits suicide, but I think in many cases they were like, we were trying to get help. We knew she was struggling, we knew he was struggling. He'd been to the doctor, he was on antidepressants, and we just lost him. We lost him. And it's tragic. But now that I understand, hi Rebecca, now that I understand that what this is, that this is a spirit, well, that's something we can do something about. Think about that. Say it to yourself. Say it out loud. That's something we can do something about. God tells us what to do about this. We can command this to stop. And I think as a group of believers, we can come together in groups, and instead of being angry and upset, if you want to be angry or upset, be angry or upset at the governments and the lobbying groups and the other groups that are taking, Janet said it really nicely, that are taking advantage of these people who are really struggling. So they're now grooming them from childhood to get them down this transgender path, and they don't know it. They just know that they're hurting, and this person's being really accepting and loving, and so this person must want what's best for me, and whatever this person is telling me, it must be right because they accept me when I don't feel like anybody else understands me. People do a lot of things for a lot for somebody that they trust. I mean, how many times have your kids been scared to do something, but because you were there, they were able to be bold enough and do it? Something that they didn't. When my youngest was learning to ride a bike, he had some motor planning issues. He was a preemie, and so it was so hard for him because along with motor planning, he had some sensory issues, right? So when you're riding a bike, you got to remember to keep pedaling forward. Don't pedal backwards, it'll stop the bike. You got to remember to keep your weight balanced in the middle. You got to remember to steer. You got to not be thrown off by the fact that the wind's blowing or you're going faster. You got to, you can't just slam on your brake. There's a lot. It's a lot of planning. People don't realize how much planning goes into being able to ride a bike. And Jake was scared to death. And so the first thing I did was I put him on the bike and I would lean him from side to side quickly. And I'm like, foot down, foot down, foot down, foot down, foot down. And the reason I did that was so he would know how to stop, right? He would know how to handle that sensation of the bike going from side to side or tipping. He would know foot down and that he could, catch himself, because that was his fear. His fear was falling. So let's address that first. So then we'd go up and down the street and he was so scared. I'd let go of the bike a little bit and he'd panic and stop and steer toward the curb. And I said, Jacob, God does not give us a spirit of fear. And he's like, he does. I'm afraid. And I'm like, no, you're afraid, but you don't have to be. You can reject that. You say to me, God does not give me a spirit of fear, but of a power, love, and a sound mind. Say it. And he's like, God does not give us a spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind. And we're going down the street. And I'm like, again, God does not give us a spirit of fear. And I'm like, no, God does not give me a spirit of fear. God does not give me a spirit of fear. And I'm like, okay, God gives me a spirit of power, love, and a sound mind. Say it. And we did it over and over and over again. He did not learn to ride a bike that day, but we worked on fear. And that's huge. That's huge. It's think of, people are scared they're going to be shot by transgender people. Transgender people are scared they're going to be violently attacked by people who are non-trans. And what's interesting is that's not happening. If you are a trans person, or a female for that matter, your highest risk for being seriously assaulted, injured, or killed is from a domestic partner. And if you look at, because they keep saying that there's a genocide against trans people, where is this? Where is this? A genocide would indicate that people are being rounded up and killed because they're trans. That is not happening. Now, do you have psycho killers who might go into a gay bar and shoot a bunch of people? Well, I mean, in Florida, that was a religiously motivated case. That was a Muslim person who, as I recall, was struggling with these feelings of gender dysphoria, and I think out of hating that in himself, went in and shot up this place. It's very tragic. But if you're most trans people who are seriously injured or killed, it happens in an intimate relationship. And so if there is a trans genocide, that's where it's happening. And you're at a higher risk for that. If you're trans, you are more likely to be depressed, anxious, suicidal. So you're probably not making the best decisions when it comes to relationships, right? You're probably more likely to get with somebody who's going to be abusive to you, because you're going to get with somebody who might be a lot like you and who is struggling emotionally, perhaps has this spirit that has overtaken them. And that spirit wants to kill even the trans person. I mean, if that spirit, hold on. Oh, the rain is so loud. If that spirit really loved the trans person, would it want that for them? Would it, like, a loving spirit doesn't want you to butcher your body. They just don't, right? We want you to enjoy in fullness all that you are. If you're a female, as you get old enough, I want you to be able to enjoy all of the body parts you came with, in every way that God gave you to enjoy those things. Intimacy with your husband or wife, all of those things have their place. And I wonder if these parents who are so scared that they're going to lose their kid to suicide, I wonder if the doctors are really informing them, your child is going to be sterile. They will never have a child, not naturally. And people are like, oh, you all just don't want adopted kids as grandkids. That's not true. That's not true. I would happily accept any child as my grandchild. And I've mothered, I don't know how many kids, that weren't mine. That's just part of being a loving member of a community. But do you really think they understand and take into consideration, like, even all the medical stuff that person's now going to have to endure for the rest of their life? There's no option. If you have gone male to female, what you've got to endure on a daily basis is big. And if you've gone female to male, there's problems with that too, that are lifelong health issues. And I think they're just so scared. They're so terrified. That spirit puts that spirit of fear, and we accept it. And we're like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's all. I guess that all could happen. But, but I would still have my kid. And out of that selfishness of wanting to still have that kid, and out of that fear, they make a decision that is not in the best interest of that child, because they have been confused and misled by the health industry and by the government and by the media. So if we can keep that in mind, that they've been victimized just as much as we're being victimized, and we just realize it, right? We know it. We know what's going on. We know it's a big lie. They don't. They're sold out to it. They believe it. Like, why would the government, how many times have you been trying to tell somebody the truth? And they're like, well, why haven't I heard this on the news? That's not what I heard on the news. That's not what so-and-so said. That's not what the government says. So who is their God? Right? They're taking their decrees from a corrupt government, a Republican and Democrat alike. There's blame all the way around. It is a uniparty. Lost video and sound. Let me see. Maybe we got kicked off Rumble. It looks like my connections are still. It says I'm still live. Janik. Oh, I guess you can't hear me. Let me tell you something. JNAK. Hit refresh. Let's see if I can see your problem here. Anyway, yeah, it looks like I'm still on. And I got sound. I think it's on your end, sweetie. Try refreshing. Um, so I just wanted to talk about that because it is this huge issue of our day, and I think we need to come together and have a spiritual understanding of what's going on, because how are you going to know what your white hat is if you don't even know what the problem is? There we go, we got her. So if you accept all that as truth, or if you need some time to digest it, knowing that going forward, how can you be, how, what is your white hat? What is a thing that you could do, just a small thing that could change the world? So if that is the issue, if the transgenderism issue is one that's really, really working on you and really scaring you, really causing you a lot of anxiety, whether you're in the position of being a trans person or a parent of someone who's struggling with that, or you're straight as an arrow and that's not your issue. Or you're just worried about your kids, that sort of thing. Yeah, there's a lot of issues on Rumble tonight. I think we're just going to have trouble. So let's start thinking of ways where we can employ compassion without giving up on our principles and what we know is right. Even if there's nothing that you can do physically or nothing that you can say that won't be misinterpreted and tagged onto transphobia, you could still pray. We could still pray against that spirit. The disciples cast out spirits in the name of Jesus. And I believe we serve a living God. I really do. I met him. He wasn't dead. So, I mean, there's no argument there for me. God, what would you have us do beyond prayer? And I know you can show us, start with prayer, of course, and then you can guide us and how we can help. See, to me, gender affirming care is affirming the gender that the person is. It's helping that person come to grips with that gender, right? So for me, here I'm 9 years old and I'm developing woman-sized breasts, and it is humiliating to me that I have become the object of teasing and bra snapping and purple nurples and everything that little boys do. What the things that helped me through that, my mother affirmed my gender, right? Like this idea that we must now affirm what this child believes, because probably they've been told, even though it is in complete contradiction with their reality. That's not gender affirming. Gender affirming would be, you are born with female body parts or male body parts, therefore that is what your gender is. You're struggling to connect with that, either spiritually or just because your body's doing things you're not ready for, or there were a whole lot of had boys not been messing with me, I probably wouldn't have thought it was such a big deal. But when boys are calling out your boobs in front of everybody in class, it's really humiliating. And a lot of girls go through this, and I can see where at that point they're like, no, I don't want these boobs. I didn't ask for this problem. I'm embarrassed all the time now. I just want to go back to being, straight as an arrow, no hips and a flat chest, because life was better then and people weren't picking on me. So I feel like if we're going to do gender affirming care, shouldn't that be to help that person unify their belief about who they are with their physical reality of who they are? To me, that's gender affirming. That is holistic, right? That is addressing the mind, body, spirit of this person and helping them see themselves the way God created them. That God delighted over them when he made them. When God made you female or God made you male, he delighted in that. He was so looking forward to you enjoying your life in that body. And so, yes, maybe you're confused or you're going through a hard time or you're the object of derision, whatever. Those are things we can work on in your perfect body. Your body is perfect. You don't need to change a thing. And it's interesting to me because we've got this body positivity movement, except for, hi, Mama Llama. We got this body positivity movement, except for when it comes to gender. So you can't tell somebody that they need to lose weight, that their weight is unhealthy. You can't, if you want to wear, if you're 500 pounds and you want to wear a tube top and a string bikini and do upside down twerking, that's totally fine. What the, I don't understand what's going on in this world, right? And I just, you can't say anything because that wouldn't be affirming that person. But you can tell somebody they're in the wrong body. You're in the wrong body. That's what your problem is. You need to go cut off your penis. But if you told a heavy person, you know what, probably a lot of your health issues, your diabetes, your fatigue, your joint pain are because you're carrying some extra weight. And if you could get that off, we could help you get your diet right. I think you'd probably feel a lot better, right? We try to bring them back into the state of wholeness, the way their body was created. But for some reason, if there's gender confusion, there is no body positivity. It's you got to start cutting that stuff off because that's what's wrong with you. That's what's wrong with you. That penis, get that off you. That's what's wrong with you. Those breasts, chop those off and you'll be fine. When does that ever work? I mean, how many times have we seen women who are addicted to plastic surgery and, they're on a size H boob at this point and having a hard time finding a doctor who will put them in what comes after H? I, put them in an eye cup, So that's just something to think about. This entire concept to affirm this concept is what's silly. Exactly. The part I agree with is that gender is a concept, that nothing is purely, it's not that gender is a concept. Gender is gender. What people like and dislike, what parts of the world that they gravitate to, that differs for every person. You're going to have little girls who want to play with trucks and little girls who are rough and tumbles and little girls who are really sad that their boobs came in. That's not gender as a concept. That's just facts, things that are facts of life that person may have, they may gravitate differently, right? So I liked to play sports and I like to rough and tumble. That has nothing to do with gender. That's activities. Those are activities I enjoy. It has nothing to do with my gender. So I don't think gender is a concept. I think gender is that you are either made chromosomally male or female, period. Now, people always throw in, well, what about intersex? Do you know how rare that is? Hermaphroditism is so rare. This is not some huge problem that we've got all these intersex people. That is not it's not an issue. And generally with somebody who is intersex, the way we handle that is, so you've got a child who you've assumed was a boy. Usually what happens at birth is they have ambiguous genitalia. So they'll have a penis that is incredibly small and testicles that are incredibly small. And they'll just assume that is a boy because there are penis and testicles present. And then at some point they start menstruating or growing boobs, and you go in and you have them checked, and they've got ovaries, and so then you kind of have to have the sit down with this person and say to them, you've got both sets of sex organs. And I think probably for the most part, if that person was raised whatever gender, because those were the parts you had, what they find is generally if you go ahead and stick with that, because that's how they were raised, their brain is cooked that way now, they think they're a boy. But this is so rare. This is so rare. It's silly that we're even talking about it. It's so rare. Most of what's going on with transgenderism does not have anything to do with being a hermaphrodite. 99.9%. Biological sex is biological sex. Gender is calling sports male or cooking female. No, that's not gender. Calling sports male is just mislabeling sports. Gender. I'm not going to be able to get it good. Yeah, what it says now is refers to the characteristics of women, men, girls, and boys are socially constructed. That is not the original definition of gender. And I'm going to have to go get an actual dictionary that was printed before all this started. Now, sexual orientation is different than gender. You can have somebody who knows what gender they are. They just are not attracted to the opposite sex. Yeah, everything I can find now says gender is a social construct. I will have to go up and actually get the dictionary, because I think people think that that's always been the definition. It has not. Because I can tell, the reason I say that is because on all the medical forms that I've filled out, that I have people fill out, it'll say gender male or female up until recently. So gender and biological sex were synonymous. If you asked somebody 10 years ago what sex they were, what gender they were, they would tell you male or female. And we've now kind of morphed it. You know, a girl liking sports doesn't make her male gendered, or a male liking cooking. I mean, both my boys like cooking. That doesn't make them female gendered. Cooking is no more female than it is male. Sports are no more male or female. They're just sports, and certain people gravitate toward them and other people don't. So equivocating activities or things with gender is, it's like saying pink is for girl and blue is for boys. That has nothing to do with gender. Those are two colors that you are now giving gender traits, but those are not gender. Yeah, they used to be interchangeable, but the words have been right. Yeah, I'm talking about the true meaning of the words, not the co-opted meanings. But I understand what you're saying. Now it's people think, oh well, if you like to play sports, then then you like male things, or if you like to watch football and drink beer, that's a male thing. It's not. It's a thing. Somebody may call it a male thing, but it's a thing. Men or women can like it. It doesn't matter. See, that used to be the thing. Like when I was a kid, if my brother had wanted a doll, my dad would have freaked out, because that's just how the times were then. Hi, Vicki Elliott. But when I raised my kids, it was no big deal if your boy wanted a doll. So my little boy wanted a doll. And I'm like, oh, okay, I feel weird about this, because I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. That was the thinking at the time. And I was like, oh, wow, I wonder how that. And then I'm like, Penny, that's silly. The fact that he wants to play with a doll has nothing to do with his gender. And so I got him the doll, and it turned out he wanted the doll as a girlfriend. So it was this big doll, and I'd come in the room, and there he's like 3 years old, and he's dancing with it. So he wanted a wife, is what he wanted. He was emulating what he saw in my relationship with my husband. And he felt like he needed a girl, because my husband had a girl. Used to be interchangeable. I wanted to post up some of these. I've been slow. Sorry, guys. I can't believe how some schools telling kids not to tell their parents. I know, right? Well, the colleges are teaching that gender and sex are different. Oh, yeah, I know. But the colleges teach a lot of things that aren't true. Kat says, I like your definition of gender affirming care. Mama Llama says, just jumping in here, but I'm totally with you. Brains don't develop until they're 25. How can a child know how they identify with social media? If you had asked me at 9 years old if I wanted to remove my breasts, I would have said yes. I would have said yes. They were nothing but problems for me. I like them now. I'm glad I kept them. It is actually holistic. Yeah. I graduated in 2012, and that's what I was taught. Wow. You're young. I can't believe how some schools are telling the kids not to tell their parents. These are just social construction of what gender is. Yeah, okay, that, Mama Llama, that's it. Our society has reconstructed the meaning of gender to advocate. I want to think of how to say this, because I don't like to be offensive on purpose. They've done this to push this trans agenda. And so let's talk about that a little bit. Why would the government push a trans agenda? Why would the media push a trans agenda? I'll say this, and there'll be a lot of people will be like, well, why would that be true? Because they hate you. Because they are our government, Democrats and Republicans alike. Are there some good Republicans? Yes. Are there some good Democrats? Yes. A lot of them that work in government are a bunch of lunatics, right? And they're not there for us. They're there to push whatever they're there to push and to make money and gain power. And one side is just as bad as the other. And there are some exceptions. I would just say that, because you've not got, where is the outcry in Congress of them saying, whoa, hold on, we're going to fight against this. This is not, it's there, but it's not out. You know what I mean? Like, you know how the whole trans thing is in your face, and they're just shoving it down your throat 24/7. Everybody's got to accept it and embrace it. And like now gay people, a guy that is gay is now a transphobe if he doesn't want to sleep with a trans man. That's really going on. Like the LGBTQ, the T's are taking over, and the L's and the G's are now being called transphobes because they want to sleep with truly the same gender, not somebody who identifies as the same gender. And I always wonder, like, I need to probably reach out to some of my friends and say, hey, what do you think about this? Like, how does that feel to you as a gay person now being told that you're a transphobe because you only want to sleep with somebody who was born a biological male? And I think sexual preference is an entirely different thing from transgenderism. Just like, the whole drag queen thing. Drag queens aren't new. Drag queens have been around forever, forever. These are people who are doing a minstrel show instead of blackface, it's makeup face. And it's an insult to women. It was meant as comedy, but now they're using it in such a depraved way. Before you could go see a burlesque show, you could go see a drag show or whatever, but nobody would have considered putting those on for children. And now our government is wanting to make sure that there's a drag queen show at every school. They want that in the schools. And do you hear crazy, insane screaming from Republicans saying, oh my gosh, no, we're not going to put up with this? A couple. But the rest of them don't care. They just want to make their money. And Mitch McConnell is retiring. Did he retire, guys? Do you know? Hi, Miss Bender. Wait. So the entire concept to affirm this concept is what's silly. Exactly. That is very well said. Do not mind me. Biological sex is biological sex. Genders, yes. Yes, they used to be interchangeable, but the words have been co-opted. Unless it was G.I. Joe, exactly, with the dolls. These traits are more common in either males or females, but that doesn't make them entirely masculine or feminine. Well, but a sport isn't a trait. Cooking isn't a trait. Those are activities. A trait is like your eye color, your hair color, your height, that sort of thing. Those aren't traits. Those are activities that people engage in. They have a podcast called Dark Horse. I've seen it. Highly recommend. They aren't believers, but they also aren't woke and call it out often. Yeah. And you know what's interesting is we share a lot of common ground with people that we normally wouldn't. So if you're a Christian, you might not share a lot of the same views with Muslim people. But this is something that Muslim people are coming out against. They're like, whoa, hold up. Not my kid, not my kid's school. And so here's an opportunity for us to collaborate and work together with people of other faiths to provide true gender affirming care, which is to help the child come into a holistic understanding that mind, body, and spirit all work together. One isn't wrong. One can't be dissected without hurting the other two parts. Nurturing, for example. Yeah, nurturing is an activity. It is a behavior that typically we think more of females as being nurturing, but I know plenty of nurturing males who are males. So to say that yes, it may be a trait that we think of being male or female, but when you look at it separate of society and that sort of thing, is nurturing something that only females do? No, men nurture all the time. My husband, I always talked about this. Gosh, it's been a while, but I used to talk about this. Every good marriage, and I know because I've been in bad ones, every good marriage, every person who is fulfilling their role holistically in a marriage has some things with it, right? So nurturing is generally something that we think of, that parents do. They nurture their young and bring them up in love, and so that they'll be able to go out in the world and be productive. Um, and in any good relationship, the woman not only has, like a female erotic love for her husband, and a friendship with her husband, but that maternal side also comes out in her because she is female, and that is naturally a part of her gender, as it is for men. But in her expression of love for her husband in a maternal way, it will be expressed in ways that we think of as more female, right? So like Don was sick, not feeling well. So I'm like, okay. And I went into mom mode. You can't help it. But I love him with all those parts of me. So all of the nurturing that I did of my children, I love my husband that way too. I don't treat him like a child, but he was sick. I'm like, okay, let's get you some supper. Let's get you warm and fed, and let's give you some medicine and get you in the bed so you can rest. That is maternal love. And if my husband sees that I'm in a situation that could potentially be dangerous to me, he steps in. And that's paternal love. That is him protecting me like a father protects his young. And it's a really important part of marriage, because just because you turn 18 or 21 or whatever, you don't stop needing that paternal aspect of love. And if you've grown up in a home like my kids did, where they didn't have a paternal uh, expression of love, they just had me trying to be both parents. Um, that is very difficult for those kids, and I think that's part of the problem. And it makes it harder going forward to wholly be who you are, because you weren't nurtured holistically. You didn't have both parents there. You didn't have a paternal love. You didn't have a maternal sort of love, or maybe you had both people in the home and they were just horrible. And so you missed out. That need doesn't go away because you become an adult, right? Um, even as an adult, if you have a good relationship with your parents, you go back to them. You need that paternal guidance and love of your father, and that logic and rational thinking, and you need that doting love of your mother, right? And so in a marriage, we have to give that to each other, because there is still that need. As long as Gen Z is fighting boomers, race division, class division, we stay disconnected and not focused on the real issues. Mama Llama, that is so well said. That's what I was thinking today. I'm like, how do we get our white hats? The way we get our white hats is we stop hating the trans person. And I mean, most of us don't hate the trans person anyway. But we stop letting all this negativity about the trans person, about the person who is opposing you politically, all of that stuff. And I'm talking about among us. I'm not talking about the government. I'm not talking about media. They deserve whatever they get. You can, gotta open this window. It's hot. Oh, you can throw all your ire their way. I'm talking about friends and neighbors and people in your community. We cannot be against each other. We cannot. Now, do we have to endorse the behavior of every goofball who's doing some crazy thing? Absolutely not. But we have to look for common ground. Now, there's going to be groups of people that you can have no common ground with, and that's no fault of your own, right? I am not going to be able to find common ground, with people who, commit human sacrifices and drink the blood of their young. It's just not going to happen. We're not, maybe I could be civil in the grocery store, but this is not a person I'm going to hang out with. I'm not going to try to accomplish goals together with this person. But when you see someone in public who is different than you, and they've got we can kind of spot each other, and it goes both ways. The person that's wearing a t-shirt with a scripture on it and a cross on it, as soon as somebody sees that, they're like, oh, and they already have this preconceived notion of who that person is. They're going to hate me because I have purple hair, because I'm a Democrat. Look at that. That's some Christian. And there's all of that angst that doesn't get said most of the time, but that is between us. And so what I'm encouraging you to do is to extend a hand of friendship to people who spirits are attacking. You know, somebody's got to do it. Who's going to be that voice that breaks through that darkness to that person? And even if it doesn't go well, there's no fault in you. You are blameless. And that's really important. You know, when my husband cheated on me, I did not want to divorce him because I made a commitment this years ago, not my current husband, because I promised God I would not leave him. And so I would not file for divorce, even though he had abandoned us and gone to live with this woman. And that was really important to me, that I had made this promise. And my pastor came to me and showed me scripture that was like, look, for abandonment, infidelity, God does allow for you to divorce that person and move on. And by that point, I was like, okay, then I would be blameless because I have fulfilled this. So let's be blameless. When you see somebody with purple hair who you already are getting your preconceived notions about who that person is, I want you to be nurturing. Thank you, didn't mind me. I want you to be nurturing. You just popped that word up and it caught me. So I want you to look at that person and find some trait that you do not feel repelled by and say, oh, you know what? You have such pretty eyes. You know, maybe they kind of scoot out of the way to let you by. Well, thank you for being so thoughtful and moving over and letting me by. That was really kind. And remind them of that humanity in themselves, because that spirit is trying to take that away. That spirit is trying to just completely dehumanize that person. And you got to help pull them in. You got to rein them back in. You got to remind them, you know, you're not this thing this spirit is telling you you are. And sometimes that can just be a small act of kindness to do that. So that's where we can start with our white hats. First, we start and we realize that these people have a spirit that is compelling them to do the things they're doing. I mean, that's the only explanation for cutting off your body parts. If I cut my arm off right now, or if I went to a doctor, if I went to this new doctor for the shoulder thing and said, look, I've just had enough trouble with this arm and I want you to remove it, I would not be able to find a doctor that would do it. Period. You could not find someone to do it. If I went to the doctor and said, I have always identified as a one-armed person, and this arm is just causing me so much problems, you know, I want to be able to sew my sleeves shut and not have anything stick out on that side, I would not be able to find anybody who would do that. They would think I was crazy. And they would tell me so, and they would send me for therapy to try to convince me not to cut off my arm. But if I want to cut off my boobs, actually, if I went to the doctor and I just said, I want my boobs removed, they would tell me no. If I went to the doctor and said, I identify as a male and I want my boobs removed, they would then remove them. And that is the only reason that they would remove them, at my request. So why is that different than anything else? You know, if I just said I didn't want to have boobs anymore, they wouldn't cut them off me. You couldn't find a plastic surgeon that would do it. They might reduce them, but I doubt seriously you'd have an easy time finding a surgeon who would just whack them off for you. But if you say the magic words, you know, I identify as male, they're like, oh, well, let's get those boobs right off you. But I can't identify as a one-armed person or a one-legged person or a one-eared person, or I can't get them to remove my eyeball because I want to be a cyclops. They just wouldn't do that. And I'm told when I say these things, oh, that's ridiculous. Is it? Why is it any different? You know, I have this perturbed view that isn't right of who I am. And I want to now modify my body to come in line with this mental delusion of who I am. And so they're going to do it. So why is it happening? Because of evil, because doctors are not immune to spirits using them, right? A doctor's no different than a trans person. We're all people. And they've given themselves over to this. You know, they gave, you know, I'm guessing that they started entertaining the idea and then they started seeing the money that was in it. I mean, you can't tell me that money is not a part of this. You have a lifelong patient when you have a transgender patient. And they believe the BS. They believe the media. These doctors, you would be surprised how little your doctor reads for the most part. As far as real deep research, there is no good research, no well-constructed clinical trials that show that physically altering a person's body brings them into line and alleviates all this dysphoria. There's not. They'll tell you there is, but these studies are horribly done. And a lot of them are Kinsey studies, which just Google that. I mean, we won't even get into Kinsey, but we need to do it at some point, probably. What gives us strength is our commonalities and unity. Yes, that's why we need to try to find common ground. As long as Gen Z is fighting boomers' race division, yep. If I had a double mastectomy, I would be no less a woman. Exactly. And your doctor would tell you that. If you said to your doctor, I'm really struggling with having my breasts removed because of my cancer. Okay, let me give you a good example of that. Thank you for saying that. You guys are so smart. You add so much to this for me. When I had to have a hysterectomy. So I had one ovary out because I had a cyst on it that was so big that it twisted the ovary over and it squeezed the fallopian tube shut. It was torsioned and it was excruciating because the ovary was dying, and that's very painful. And so they went in and they took out that ovary, and I said, please check the other ovary and make sure there's not a cyst on it, because why wouldn't there be? It's the same body. And if there is, just take everything, because I don't want to have this surgery again. So they went in, there was a cyst on the other ovary, but it was small, so they left it. They took the one ovary, and within a month I had to have a total hysterectomy because the same thing happened on the other side. Now, I had my tubes tied. I had no plans to have any other children. I had all three of my kids. I was 32, and so I had David at 23, Laura at 25, Jake at 27. So I'm now 32. Is that right? Yeah. And so I wasn't going to have any more kids. I grieved. And it may sound crazy, and it's so funny because after it happened to me, I started having talks with my patients that were in for hysterectomies. And I'm like, you may go home, even though you did not plan on having any children. You may go home, and because your womb is gone, your ovaries are gone, maybe your cervix is gone too, you may go home and now feel like you're not a woman. And that is a very normal thing to feel. And I want you to reach out and talk to somebody if that happens to you, because it can feel very lonely. And it did for me. I remember going, I'll get teary talking about it. I had no plans to have any other children, and I got my tubes tied after Jacob because that delivery almost killed me. And I went home and grieved. And I remember telling my husband at the time, I'm barren. And he's like, you weren't going to have any kids anyway. And I'm like, I know, it doesn't make any sense. But the whole possibility of it is gone. And it broke my heart. And I grieved it. I grieved it like a death. And so I was always really careful to tell people that, you're going to go through, you're going to have this hysterectomy. And for a lot of people, it solves problems. If you've got endometriosis, you're in pain all the time. You can't wait to get that stuff out. And a lot of times those women do well, but a lot of times they're surprised. They go home and they grieve, and they don't tell anybody because they don't know. It's like, this idea that when you have your baby, you're immediately going to love them and be attached to them. That is not always true. There's a lot that goes into it. There's big emotional changes. There's medical things that go on. You may have a separation from the child, not get to see them immediately. That happened with my first. And I remember with my first, because I didn't get to see him for 12 hours, I wasn't sure he was mine. I got this idea in my head, hormones, all that. I'm like, you're sure he's mine? I mean, how do you know? Like, I didn't get to see him. You guys just rushed him off. Are you sure? And I had a hard time bonding because we got separated for 12 hours. Because I didn't get to nurse him right away. I didn't get to hold him because he was in critical condition. And so it interrupted our ability to bond, and it made me feel like something was wrong with me as a woman. What's wrong with me? And then I couldn't nurse him. I tried and tried, and it was not successful. And I'm like, what kind of mother can't nourish her own child? Those are just really normal things that we go through that we need to talk about. And so I feel like, see how normal that is? That's on this range of normal. I had a lot of trouble with that first one, but the second one, it kind of just all fell into place. And the same with the third. But I struggled to get there. The struggle is really normal. The struggle is part of life. And I think if life is messy, and if you just accept that, if you just tell your kids, you know what, life is messy, and you're going to have days where you hate your body because of things other people say. And that's really normal. And we've all gone through that, and that's okay. just knowing that is huge. Like when I would run into a woman who'd had a hysterectomy and maybe I'd taken care of her in the hospital, and she would say, I'm so glad you said that to me, because when that depression hit and I started grieving that I would never have another child, your words came back to me and I was like, oh, that's normal. That's part of the healing process of going through a hysterectomy. And it alleviated that for her. Just knowing that it was normal and that other people went through it, there was nothing wrong with her, helped. And so I think instead of telling kids this idea that you have is true and we need to start cutting off your body parts, and instead saying, oh, this sense that you're having where you can't connect to your body, that's so normal. I remember going through that as a kid. It's really a tough time and you're going to get through it like I got through it. You know, when you go through puberty, all those hormones are going to get in your brain and get cooking, and it's all going to come into line for you. You know, it's kind of like, you know, you go to high school and high school is such a drama shit show. And then, you know, you're like, oh, I just don't want to go to school anymore because high school was so stressful. And then you go to college and it's completely different. There's not this pecking order and all this BS. And you can go and be your own weird self, and you'll find another weirdo. And pretty soon there'll be 10 weirdos and you got a group. And it's just much easier to do in college. I don't know why. I guess because we're more mature, maybe. But yeah, all that. Hold on. I want to get in here because I'm missing some of our YouTubers here. Don't want to neglect my YouTubers. I didn't think I was going to be on tonight. So here we go. Debbie says, I grieve the loss. When you guys, this is Debbie Bender. This is Mrs. Bender, you guys. Debbie and John, our adopted family. I grieve the loss of my female parts after cancer surgery and radiation in my 30s also. Debbie, were you done having kids? Yeah, I had a radical hysterectomy too. See, look, I had a partial hysterectomy. I hope I am okay. When you have a partial hysterectomy, you still have your ovaries, so your hormones pretty much stay stable till you hit menopause. So you should be okay. But if you have trouble, let your doctor know. It's something I realize is a real possibility for me. I've had cervical dysplasia, an elite procedure. My mom had it, aunts, grandmas, etc. I would look, Mama Llama and Debbie Bender probably could have some conversations there. 2 teens in high school. AJ, my mom was partial. Yeah, I love that you guys start talking to each other. I love that we establish community here. This is why I do live and I don't like doing just videos, because doing the videos feels like there's no life in that to me. But doing the live and developing relationship with you guys and you guys developing relationship with each other, that's important. That's what I feel like we need to start doing in our communities. I'm trying to model that for you guys and for me. Yes, I feel all right. Yeah. So just, but knowing that, right? Just knowing, Mama Llama, or Debbie or AJ, if you had some sort of, you know, AJ had a partial hysterectomy. Now, if she had to go and have a full hysterectomy and had those emotions, she would remember what I said tonight and think, oh, you know what? I remember Penny talking about how she grieved the loss of, you know, her womb and her ability to reproduce like a death. And this is normal. And just sometimes just knowing it's normal is enough, and it helps you get over it. So I hope that you guys can apply that to your life. All right, it's 10:30. I want to go through some news. So let's get that done. I got to go in here and reset this thing up. Doggone it. Well, oh, wait, we just want to do a window. It is that one we got to keep up because I got a funny video in that one for the end. So I'm scared to minimize it. Okay, here we go. Like, oh, don't hit the button. What's going to happen? Okay, we want this one. And we don't need any sound. All right. Okay, so let's go through the news. I'm trying to work up the courage to go live. Mama Llama, you know what? If you want to bridge that, you can come on with me and we can do a live together. I can come on with you, whatever you want to do, if that helps you feel better. I ain't scared. I'm prepared. Okay, well, if you're prepared, then you're good. And let me know when you're going to go live and I will be in your chat, I promise, as long as you don't do it when I do mine. Not telling you when to do yours, of course. You do yours whenever you want, but I can't be there if you do it at the same time. Okay, controversial Connect company dismisses all charges against Catherine Engelbright. Now, if you didn't know, so the True the Vote people, Catherine and John, is it John? What is up with that? Catherine and, what is his name? Anyway, the True the Vote people, they did the 2000 Mules video. If you haven't seen 2000 Mules, you need to watch it. They did this geofencing technique, bought all of this cell phone data, signal data, tower data, I guess, and did geofencing. And they found all these ballot mules who were harvesting ballots or filling out ballots and dumping bunches of them at one time, which is illegal. And, of course, everybody came out and said, oh, this is BS. That geofencing isn't helpful. That doesn't work. Yet the FBI uses it all the time. They used it on J6. So they just are lying to you, basically, because this is a technology that's used and is accurate. So they did this movie, if you didn't know, called a documentary called 2000 Mules. And hello, SS Patriot. Greg Phillips, thank you so much. Yes, Catherine Engelbright and Greg Phillips. And boy, he's gotten his grizzly beard on, hasn't he? I think he's doing well since his cancer. I think he had prostate cancer. I think that's right, because that's what I was praying on. But anyway, they were in court. They were being sued by Connect Company in regard to this, I guess, the ballot thing. So let's read this together. I will email you. Okay. Sorry, I'm just catching these little side comments. I don't throw them all on the screen, but in October 2022, Connect CEO Eugene Yu was arrested in Michigan in connection with theft of personal data. The alleged stolen data belonged to poll workers and was the subject of the True the Vote's PIT. And so PIT was a meeting they did in Arizona last August, where Catherine Engelbright and Greg Phillips singled out the Michigan-based company. So they called out this company. During the PIT conference, Phillips and Engelbright alleged they were cooperating with the FBI in Michigan about data being sent overseas by this company. So Phillips and Engelbright are saying that they're working with the FBI. The investigation quickly started to turn on them after the FBI started to distance itself from the investigation for some strange reason. Journalist incognito Kanakoa, I think he's on Twitter, covered this company and researched them better than anyone at the time. And then there's the link. So here's the October 4th. This is a news release. Head of election worker management software arrested in connection with theft of personal data. So Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon, there's one of your problems, announced today that an executive with a Michigan-based company, this is dated October 4th of 2022, Michigan-based company responsible for the software used in managing Los Angeles County election poll workers has been arrested as part of an investigation into the possible theft of personal identifying information of those workers. I want to thank my prosecutors and investigators for their commitment to eliminating cyber intrusions against government entities and local businesses, District Attorney Gascon said. Data breaches are an ongoing threat to our digital way of life. When we entrust a company to hold our confidential data, they must be willing and able to protect our personal identifying information from theft. Otherwise, we're all victims. This investigation is concerned solely with the personal identifying information of election workers. In this case, the alleged conduct had no impact on the tabulation of votes and did not alter election results. But security in all aspects of any election is essential so that we have full faith in the integrity of the election process. Earlier today, Connect Chief Executive Officer Eugene Yu was taken into custody on suspicion of theft of personal identifying information by investigators from the DA's Office Bureau of Investigation with assistance from the Meridian Township Police Department in Michigan, blah, blah, blah. They extradited him to LA, or they were seeking it. Connect distributes and sells its proprietary Poll Chief software, which is an election worker management system that was utilized by the county in the California election. Okay, blah, blah, blah. The theft of data only impacted the election workers. We talked about that. Following the CEO's arrest, Fairfax County in Virginia announced they stopped using Connect's Poll Chief election officer management software. True the Vote's Catherine Engelbright and Greg Phillips were hauled into court by lawyers representing Connick, who are suing Catherine and Greg for defamation. Which is interesting because the person was arrested for this. So how is that defamation? And what was a strange twist, the court case started just days after the CEO of Connick was arrested on October 4th. U.S. District Judge Kenneth Hoyt demanded the conservative nonprofit group disclose their sources of the information central to the case about sensitive poll worker data managed by Connick. After Connick sued True the Vote, which is Catherine and Philip Greg's organization, last month for defamation, Hoyt ordered True the Vote to turn over any Connick data the organization still had and disclose the name of the individual who'd helped them obtain it. Greg and Catherine refused to burn their source, and they ended up spending 10 days in jail, in solitary confinement, no doubt, or no less. The Soros-funded LA district attorney dropped the charges against Connick the day after the 2022 midterm election for some reason. So on Tuesday, Greg and Catherine released all their information on the China-linked Connick company at Open.Inc. The next day, Connick dropped all charges against Greg and Catherine. So interestingly, once they dumped the proof they had, this guy was like, oh, okay, sorry, my bad, won't sue you, which tells me that their data was real. So yesterday, Connick dismissed all pending defamation and unlawful computer access litigation against True the Vote, Catherine and Greg. True the Vote issued this comment. Connick's litigation was meritless and intended to harass this organization. They failed. We are evaluating our options with regard to holding them accountable for their unwarranted actions. We believe Connick dismissed its lawsuit because it saw that it would lose. I would agree. And so this is just some vindication for Greg and Catherine after having to spend 10 days in jail and being humiliated. And what's funny is rather than, because the goal when you're doing this is to shut these people down. Well, you pick the wrong people because, there are those of us who will not be shut down. I won't be shut down. Salty won't be shut down. Who else? All the Bongino, all the truth. Who's the guy? Joe Rogan. They're like, screw you, try and shut us down. And it just makes them more popular. And it just gives them a louder voice and a bigger platform. So good for Catherine and Greg for sticking it out. And they're pissed now, and now they won't stop. So good job, guys. You poked the bear, and now you're going to have to put up with them. Okay. Alec Baldwin. What on earth? They have now decided that the gun could have gone off on its own. And apparently Alec Baldwin had actual bullets in his gun belt. Why would he have actual bullets? They're like, where did these bullets come from? Well, I don't know. How did Alex Baldwin get bullets in his gun belt? So Alec has come out. They've restarted filming on this movie. And he has come out and said that, or his attorney, I guess, has come out and said that the charges have been dropped and he's all good. Well, apparently that's not the case. Actor Alec Baldwin, this is by Jack Davis. Actor Alec Baldwin is not home free, even though charges against him were dropped, according to special prosecutors. Numerous outlets reported Thursday that the manslaughter charges against Baldwin and the October shooting death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins on the set of the movie Rust were dropped. Baldwin's lawyers immediately claimed this was vindication. Quote, we are pleased with the decision to dismiss the case against Alec and encourage a proper investigation into the facts and circumstances of this tragic incident. However, in their statement Thursday night on the decision to drop the charges, special prosecutors Jason Lewis and Carrie Morrissey said it does not mean they are gone for good. Benny Johnson, thank you. Over the last few days and in preparation for the May 3rd, 2023 preliminary hearing, new facts were revealed that demand further investigation and forensic analysis in the case against Alec Baldwin, the prosecutors said in a statement. Consequently, we cannot proceed under the current time constraints and on the facts and evidence turned over by law enforcement in its existing form. So something else has come up. Some other kind of evidence has presented itself. They cannot now meet this deadline of May 3rd, so they've had to drop the charges while they complete their investigation. That's basically what's gone on. This decision does not absolve Mr. Baldwin of criminal culpability and charges may be refiled, they said. Our follow-up investigation will remain active and ongoing. So we'll see where it goes. Could this just be a way to quietly dismiss things? Sure, who knows with these people. I just don't trust any of them, which is just a good way to be. Good night, Mama Llama. Love to you, honey. Um, so yeah, he's not out of the doghouse yet. We'll see what happens. And what's interesting is I'll just put money on this. I'll bet y'all $5 that Alec goes and gets cocky. He's just not going to be able to stop himself because he's just that kind of jerk. But he's going to go and get cocky. He's going to do some kind of interview or remote podcast, something you've not really heard of or doesn't have a ton of viewership. He's going to do something where he's going to have to come out and say that this, he's in the clear. He didn't do this. He's not going to just be quiet. The fact that he's gone back to filming this movie is just, with everything that was going wrong on that set, people leaving, safety concerns, all kinds of things. I'm just amazed that they were able to even insure the set for this production. So we'll see what happens with this guy. And we'll just see where it goes from here. We just don't know yet. But that guy's, his number's been pulled. He's going to do something stupid. COVID vaccines not needed for healthy kids and teens, says the World Health Organization. What's interesting about this is I don't trust the World Health Organization on anything. But what is interesting is that the World Health Organization also came out and advised against using remdesivir. But the FDA in our country were like, what? They said, what? No, we didn't hear that. I can't, la, 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 la. And they keep using it, right? That's basically what they do. So now the WHO has come out and said COVID vaccines are not needed for kids, healthy kids and teens. But our government, so what happened recently was that original 2-dose series that Moderna and Pfizer had, those have now lost emergency use authorization. You can't get those. All you can get is the new bivalent, which is having a ton of problems. Please don't do it. But now you can only get the bivalent. So if you're a baby, you get 3 shots of the bivalent. If you're a kid, you get 2. And I think if you're an adult, you get 1. I think that's right. You mean run death is near? Oh, run death is near. That's exactly what I mean, H. She's so funny. That's exactly what I mean, my friends. Run death is near. It's succinct, I could go with that. My show would be much shorter. Okay, so healthy children and teens likely don't need COVID-19 vaccinations. Their strategic advisory group came up with this. The new roadmap defines 3 priority groups, high, medium, and low, based on the risk of severe disease and death, which is why kids don't need it. They're deemed a low priority for vaccination. The other thing I want you guys to be cautious of and have in your mind is that all of these shots are going to start going to mRNA, and I don't know what we're going to do when that happens. So they're already working on a combo shot that would be would be an mRNA shot for influenza, COVID, and RSV. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm telling you, don't do it. Okay? I don't know what we're going to do when the old shots aren't available, like when you can't get the standard usual vaccines that we've used for decades. I'm praying they don't transition all of that to mRNA, because I would not take any of them. Then what are you going to do? You're going to have a whole population that's not vaccinated. And the other thing is, now that those first mRNA vaccines were tested and approved, they are now saying that they don't need to test any other vaccine that they would make with that technology, because that technology has already been proven safe and effective. So if they do a flu shot with mRNA, they don't have to test that and see if it's safe. And now they're even saying that they could use computer models. And even if they test it, they're not testing to see if it prevents you from getting the virus, ending up in the hospital or dying. They're just checking you for an antibody response. And if you have an antibody response, woohoo, we got an antibody response. And now it's good to go. And I'm like, no. An antibody response does not equal you won't end up in the hospital or dead. It just means you had an antibody response. I could be exposed to something today, have an antibody response that was inefficient, and still get it, which is exactly what's happening. I can't believe they can improve shots based on antibody response. Sherry says, hi, didn't want to interrupt, just been listening. I'm not good physically or health-wise. So as much as I hate to go, I have to get back to bed. Love your heart. I'm glad I got to see you a little. Have a good night. Sherry, I will be praying for you. I'm sorry you're struggling with your health. Sad. The school called me the other day. Now they are doing shots at school. Oh, wow. I just told the nurse I am not worried about it right now. Yeah, our schools have always done shots. I remember the school nurse calling me and harassing me because I wouldn't get the hepatitis shots for my kids because they didn't give them at birth when my kids were little. I would never give a newborn a hepatitis shot. That's insane. They have no risk for hepatitis. If the mother has hepatitis, they would have risk. But if the mother has hepatitis, they can't get the shot anyway. Um, I don't know why anybody would agree to a hepatitis shot for a newborn, except for that they don't know any better. But I just want you guys to be cognizant that you may not be told that this new shot that they want your baby to get that's for flu and COVID and RSV is mRNA. I guarantee you they're not going to tell you it is mRNA. So you need to be asking. You need for the package insert, you need to see the information for yourself. Oh, really? They've not done shots. Are you sure? Like maybe I would ask her if it's new because they've done them, and a lot of parents just don't know they've done them because they've always kept their kids up on their shots. So they've never had a conversation with the nurse. But where my kids came out of compliance with their vaccines because they were in middle school and hadn't had a hepatitis vaccine, that's when I found out that the school actually can give them. So I would ask because you may just not have known about it because your kids were up on their shots and no one ever mentioned it to you. But yeah, our schools have been given immunizations for a while, and I'm like, no, they can't have that shot. If I'd wanted them to have that shot, I would have got it. I got your notes about them being out of compliance, and I answered you and told you I was not. They have no risk for hepatitis. They're not sexually active. They're not using IV drugs, and they're not healthcare workers. When they get to high school and I start getting that sense that they may become sexually active, I will absolutely consider this series. And I did. I did it then. It's like Gardasil. They were calling me because my daughter hadn't had Gardasil. We did one Gardasil vaccine, and she started having terrible joint pain to the point that they thought she had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And so we didn't do any more. So yeah, AJ, check on that for me because I would be curious. Call the school nurse and say, hey, have you guys been doing these immunizations for quite a while? And, I just didn't know about it because my kids were always current. I would ask because I'm really curious to know. I mean, the kids here can get birth control from the school nurse. So there's that. But anyway, they don't need it. Prior infection provides just as much protection as a vaccine, actually provides better protection because it protects you against new variants, which the shots won't do. But that's all I wanted you to know about that. So all you people out there who've got little ones who are now being offered this COVID vaccine for your babies, know that the World Health Organization, I know they're a junk organization, but even they have come to this conclusion that this is not necessary for children. Now they will tell you if your kid is sick or, impaired in some way that I don't see how this could help. I don't see how this could make them more safe when we know it can cause myocarditis and all these other things. What I would advise is if you have a kid that's high risk, you make sure that you have a treating pediatrician who will provide care. Will they prescribe your child ivermectin if they get sick? And if not, you've got the over-the-counter protocol that is fine for kids. We may have to discuss that, don't go with the adult doses, but Janik says, I was informed my granddaughter needs a shot for next school year. If I don't get it, she can't return. Well, what's the shot? And what state are you in? That would be good to know. It's so funny because they quote Mark Siegel, who is the Fox Medical contributor, and who's the other lady there's a lady that's on there. Dr. I can't remember. Anyway, both of these Fox Medical contributors were pushing these jabs. I don't trust anything they say. Now they're all like, oh no, this isn't a good idea for kids. But Nicole Saphier, she was right there saying, oh, soon the shot will be out and we can get it for the kids. So she was pushing all of this stuff. She wasn't doing the research. She would not listen to the other side. Neither would Mark Siegel. I have no respect for either one of them as far as the advice that they give medically because they're just now turning, now they're like, oh, this is a very bad idea, but they were pushing it along with everybody else before, even though the data was there. Yeah, I'm going to. Which vaccine did you just say wasn't necessary for hepatitis? I have a new grandbaby. If you have a new grandbaby, they've already had shot 1. They got it before they left the hospital. They'll soon be getting 2 and 3. There's no reason for it. Now, if you stop the series now, just know you'll have to redo the whole series when you do want to have it done. But yeah, if your grandbaby is not using IV drugs, is not having unprotected sex, is not a healthcare worker, they have no. And just ask the doctor. I would say, hey, how do you catch this type of hepatitis? And they'll tell you those 3 things. And you'll say, well, then why does my baby need a shot? Just a good question. Also know that hepatitis vaccine that they give infants and newborns was only tested for like 8 days. They only watched for ill effect. It was like 5 or 8 days or 12 days. It was less than 2 weeks, or right at 2 weeks. That was the entire monitoring time for the safety of that vaccine in children. And they just want to prevent hepatitis on a whole because they're going to tell you that it's the leading cause of liver failure in the United States. Okay, is that type of this is the question you ask. Okay, so that type of hepatitis is responsible for liver failure in children in the United States? Just ask that. So that type of hepatitis is killing infants? Just ask him. Because I'm not sure how would that happen if they're not using IV drugs, having unprotected sex, or working as a healthcare worker. And then they'll tell you, well, later in life, okay, well then why do they need the shot now? What risk is there now? How does getting this shot now change anything? They're not involved in any of those risk behaviors. So what would be so dangerous about waiting until they're in 6th grade? They'll say, well, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends. Okay, well, they recommend they recommend gender affirming care and cutting off your kids' junk. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't take a lot of stock in what the American Academy of Pediatrics says anymore. Okay, officials in Tennessee say release of trans Nashville shooters manifesto is being stalled by the FBI. Well, we knew this, didn't we? It's now been weeks since the trans shooter Audrey Hale attacked. Doesn't this take on like a whole new meaning since that video we watched? If you're here late, we watched a video by Jonathan Kahn on YouTube, and he was talking about the spirits and this female spirit in the Bible. Just go back and listen to it. I don't want to explain the whole thing. But when we read this now, you're going to have like, oh, wow, that's going to be stuck in your brain. That's why we did that first. It's now been weeks since trans shooter Audrey Hale attacked a school in Nashville, killing 6 people, including 3 kids, and the public still has not seen the manifesto. This is by Mike LaChance. Glenn Greenwald has been trying to access the document, but has been blocked at every turn. Now officials in Tennessee are claiming that the release, my voice is going to get weak soon and we'll have to stop, guys. I'm still have that cranial nerve damage that's affecting my voice box. Now officials in Tennessee are claiming that the release of the document is being stalled by the FBI. Why? Tennessee officials say, we already read that, authorities have delayed the release of a manifesto penned by Audrey Hale, the shooter who killed 6 in the Nashville school. She called it a blueprint on total destruction. Representative Tim Burchett, Republican from Tennessee, told the New York Post the FBI was behind the delay while calling for the documents to be released to grieving loved ones. The manifesto could maybe tell us a little bit about what's going on inside her head, he told the newspaper. I think that would answer a lot of questions. During a search of the house Hale shared with her parents, authorities seized 20 journals, 5 laptops. Who has 5 laptops? Who has 20 journals? A suicide note, and various other notes written by Hale, as well as 2 memoirs, 5 Covenant School yearbooks, and 7 cell phones, according to a search warrant. What an odd situation. Nashville Council member Courtney Johnston told the Post the FBI has already ruled the manifesto would not be released in its entirety. Why? This whole, I love that they make out like the conservatives are just maniacs and they're just waiting for some fuel, and then they're going to go on this mad killing spree. Really? I think you can release it and we can handle whatever the truth of that is. We're adults. What I was told is that her manifest was a blueprint on total destruction, and it was so detailed at the level of what she had planned. She said when reached by phone, "Why is this being hidden from the public? Does anyone believe the manifesto would be hidden from the public if the shooter were a conservative?" And that's the question. If it were me, a God-believing Christian person, who is conservatively minded, um, and holds a traditional view of the world, I guarantee you every dang thing I've said to you would be trotted out. Everything I've written, it would all be trotted out, and they would malign me with it. So why is this person exempt? I don't know what these weird pictures are that they put on Gateway Pundit. They're so distracting. Like, what? That's a toenail. Stop it. There more article? Like, right, you could have just told me the article was over so I wouldn't have had to look at all those weird pictures. Oh my goodness. I don't know what it is. I'm in Nevada. Oh, okay, well just ask. They can find out. Okay. And then this is the last story we're going to cover, because my voice is just going to crap out and I don't want it to be lost all weekend from straining it. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announces presidential run to packed house in Boston and vows to end corrupt merger of state and corporate power. So this is interesting because he's a Democrat. Um, he's a Kennedy Democrat, which would be considered a Republican today. He's a Democrat that I actually would consider voting for. Why not? It could give a lot of insight. It's so aggravating. Yeah, I agree, Janik. Okay, so here we go. He told the standing room only crowd, "I've come here today to announce to announce my candidacy for the Democratic nomination for President of the United States." You're not going to get my 70-year-old 3-pack a day smoker voice, I guess. I've come here today to announce my candidacy for Democratic nomination for President of the United States. I don't care whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. I need somebody who is in alignment with my values. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is in alignment with my values. He thinks that the FDA is corrupt. He thinks the big pharma holds too big a sway and that they are corrupt. He thinks the CDC is corrupt. He thinks the FBI, the CIA, basically, like I said, he's a Democrat. He's a Kennedy Democrat of the Kennedy era, which would now be considered a Republican. So what the media is doing everything they can to paint him as an anti-vaxxer because it is the only thing they've got on him. Before he did all this vax research and stuff like that and advocacy, he was an environmental lawyer that fought environmental causes, and was an advocate for that. So they can't really say anything else against him besides that he's an anti-vaxxer. And he's not an anti-vaxxer. He just wants safe vaccines. He wants vaccines that are actually tested more than 2 weeks, long-term studies to prove safety, and he wants actual proof of efficacy, which we don't have on many of the vaccines. Like measles. Measles actually kind of started going away as hygiene and sanitation improved. The same with polio, diphtheria, all that kind of stuff. My mission, he says, over the next 18 months of this campaign and throughout my presidency will be to end the corrupt merger of state and corporate power that is threatening now to impose a new kind of corporate feudalism. And when you hear him speak, he's got so the cranial nerve that feeds the voice box, his is damaged. And so that's why he sounds the way he does. It's why I sound the way I do, though I'll probably get better and he will not. Let me see if I can play this. I don't think you're going to be able to hear it. Let me unshare this so we can share it with sound. Stop. Send. Share screen. Can I share sound in a window? I hope so. Just do that one. Okay. Because I do want you to hear his voice. I just want you to know what that is, why he sounds that way. Because I think people think he's older than he is because he has this voice issue.
I've come here today to announce my candidacy for the Democratic nomination for.
And this is him on a good day. I've heard him sound so broken that you have a hard time making out his words. But you can hear the similarity. That is a cranial nerve issue.
President of the United States.
And because it's a cranial nerve issue, he's better some days and worse other days. Like, I'm okay when I start, but then as we get to the 3-hour point, I start sounding like him. But mine will get better probably.
Throughout my presidency will be to end the corrupt merger of state and corporate power that is threatening now
Yeah, he doesn't actually need water. People offer it to him all the time. It won't help.
New kind of corporate feudalism in our country to commoditize our children, our Purple Mountains majesty, to poison our children and our people with chemicals and pharmaceutical drugs, to strip mine our assets, to hollow out the middle class, and keep us in a constant state of war.
Janik says, I think Trump is the only one who can fix this mess our country is in, and in a timely manner. I don't disagree with you, Janik. Here's the thing. What if they ran together? So currently, Kennedy has 14% of the voters that would support him. I don't know what Biden's percentage is, or Kamala's, or anybody else's at this point. It's higher than that, but 14% on entering the race is huge. That's a big, big number. That's significant. That is a number that over time will go up and can win. And I think you have enough Democrats who are so over what's going on, but are still so turned off by Trump. But I think they'll vote for Kennedy. And what I think would be really cool, it won't happen, but what I think would, I mean, maybe it would. I hate to say that, like I know the universe, or I know better than God, because anything could happen. God appoints rulers. And I know people are like, why would he appoint Biden? Well, look at everything we've learned, and look at how awake we are and how we're now paying attention to what's going on. I don't think that would have happened otherwise. I think it would be great if he would run with Trump, because you'd have what kind of historic, oh, I caught that gnat. No, I didn't. Oh, I got it. No, sorry. Squirrel. Anyway, I think, wouldn't that be the most historic thing? In fact, I think I'll pray for that. That would be something for him not to win in the primary, and then for Trump to pick him as vice president. That's not going to happen, because they're going to have picked who their vice president is by the time the primaries come. But wouldn't that be something? Or the other thing that could happen would be that Trump would run and win, and then tag Kennedy to be over the FDA or the CDC or the NIH. Wouldn't that be something? That would be something. And I could see it happening. I could also see him tagging Tulsi Gabbard for something. And I think she's partyless right now. I don't think she's a Republican. Let me know if I'm wrong on that. But anyway, I just thought that would, you guys, as stressful as everything is, I just take a step back from it, like you're watching a movie or reading a novel. Isn't this a fascinating time to be alive? There is not a day that goes by that I don't read a news story that just blows my mind. I never have been more interested in the geopolitical conversation, healthcare, big pharma. I mean, they're bad guys everywhere. It is the most interesting movie to be living in, because they're bad guys everywhere. And we all got to work together, and we got to problem solve, and we got to brainstorm, and we got to figure out how not to alienate each other. And we got to realize that we're not against each other. I'm not against the trans person. I'm not against anybody. I'm against the government. I'm against big pharma. I'm against the government and the media that are pushing all this BS nonsense on everybody. And I feel badly that and I have empathy for the people who have become completely convinced of the lies, even about their own being. I feel bad about that. I'm not going to waste time fighting that person. I'm not going to convince that person by fighting them anyway. Now, if I show them a little compassion, that may give me a foothold. And when something goes down the road, and that person maybe, like, you'll get a person who transitions and then transitions back. if that happens, that person may remember the kindness I showed them and then seek me out and ask me to help them find some truth. And they might be open to it at that point because I was kind to them when they were in that lost state. So that's something I want. Is she an independent? Thank you, Janet. Um, so I'm just fascinated. I'm just like, God, use me, help me reach somebody who I in my own arrogance think is unreachable. How dare I think that someone is beyond God's reach? That is not my place. My place is just to show love, and if they're beyond God's reach, they're beyond God's reach. But that doesn't eliminate my responsibility to show love and compassion to that person. So, I love the Salty Show. It helps me get a lot of my negative things out without expressing them or acting on them. It helps me self-check. It helps relieve some of that anger and frustration and fear for me. Um, but if you read his chat, I try to be pretty positive in the chat, but if you read his chat, there are people that are really struggling with that. They are so hurt and so overwhelmed and so fearful of this country going down the tubes that they're lashing out. And I understand it. And that is something you do have to get that negative emotion out. And if it helps them to say really awful things in the chat to get that out and not act on those negative emotions, then that's an okay outlet. Right? It's like I used to tell my kids, if you're angry, you can't hit your siblings. Now you can go in your room and pummel the crap out of your pillow if that makes you feel better, because you need to be able to express your emotions in a way that isn't harmful to somebody else and that helps you work through it. And if that's writing about it or beating on a punching bag or whatever that is, those are constructive ways to deal with it. And you can't just make your kids suppress their anger and their negative emotions. You need to say, wow, you're angry. You're angry. I know what it's like to feel angry. Sometimes when I'm angry, it makes me feel better to write down all my angry feelings and about that person and say all the mean things and write them on paper and then throw that away. That way I just get it out and get rid of it, and I don't have to have that anymore. Or maybe you got a real kinesthetic kid who's super energetic and needs to move and they're angry. Get them a little punching bag. Let them beat the snot out of that. It's good exercise. It'll help take that adrenaline and those cortisol levels down. Teach your kid to meditate. And I'm not talking about taking on some new, guru faith or whatever. The Bible tells us to meditate on the Word of God. So if your child is angry, let them know that it's okay to be angry. We just can't sin when we're angry, because they'd be acting out inappropriately because you're acting out of emotion instead of a calm and rational place. We got to teach our kids how to deal with negative emotions. How do you turn away bullying by being funny? There's all kinds of skills we can give them short of, advocating for them cutting off their body parts or doing something else that is totally not constructive or helpful. But anyway, I'll be interested to see where this goes with Kennedy. Just because I think JFK he was not a perfect man by any stretch of the imagination. Yes, guys, please press the like button. It really does help me in the algorithm. I will pause so you have time to scroll up. Now, I know if you're watching on Apple TV or Roku or something like that, that you cannot hit like. It's just not an option. There's Lady Be Good. I'm on late. I know I'm almost done. I'm losing my voice. So anyway, yes, please hit the like button. It does help me in the algorithm. And you guys, I was praying about the work that we do here. The spiritual work and just how important you guys are to me. You guys just have no idea how important you are to me and how much I pray for you. And I love you guys. I really mean that. I wouldn't just say that. And I was praying about that today, and I was just so grateful. And I was praising God for you guys and for this platform and for just using me, I mean, wow, what an honor to let me talk to his people and try to share, just a little bit of what I know. And, in the middle of that, I just looked at Don and I said, I'm going to get to 100,000. And he's like, dollars? And I'm like, oh, well, that would be nice. But no, 100,000 subscribers. I'm going to get to 100,000 subscribers. I'm going to get that little Rumble statue that they send you for 100,000 subscribers. It's going to happen because there is a need for what I'm saying. There's a need for a live streamer who is trying to establish community, who is welcoming to everybody. If you're trans, you're welcome here. I want to love on you. I want to affirm your gender, truly. Come here. You don't have to participate, but listen to what we have to say. Does it sound more in line holistically to help you accept your physical reality and embrace it and enjoy it? Or does it make more sense just to start cutting off your body parts and taking tons of drugs that are going to have a lot of awful side effects and to have medical problems for the rest of your life? Wouldn't it be better to help you, try to help you get there? Even if it doesn't happen, wouldn't it be better to try than to go this radical route first? It's like if I have a lump in my breast, it would be better just to have the lump removed than to have both of my boobs hacked off, right? We don't need to be so radical and aggressive. We can just deal with this one part that's a problem. And that's where I'm at with that, you guys. And I'm not saying that your gender ideology is a cancer or anything like that. I'm just saying that if we are going to do gender affirming care, let's actually affirm gender. Let's not say we're affirming gender by mutilating a person. That is not how that's done. All right, guys, that's all I've got except for one video that I want to show you, because I have to end with something funny, because we talk about some heavy stuff. Let me find that for you. Present. Stop. Okay, present. This one's super cute. And it cracks me up every time I see it. Don's so funny. He's like, it's funny that you think it's funny so many times. I know. Okay, this dog is called Emma. And this is Emma's chill face. And let me take this off the screen so you guys can see it. Let's go full screen on this because it's worth it. And let me fix this over here. I'm not using my Stream Deck tonight, so it's my... I'm a little slower on getting things done because I'm not using that tool. Okay, let's pause it. I want it full screen. Oh, come on, Rumble. Oh, that sucks. Oh, wait, there it is. There it is. I don't know why it's winding down there. That's weird. Okay, here we go. This dog. Is that the best thing? Wait. Oh, shoot. It always goes to Fresh and Fit. Why is their video always next? Dang it. I want that one back. I don't care about this show. Hold on. It won't let me go back. What the heck is that? That's crap. Okay, hold on. Wait a minute. Search. Here we go. Oh. Why is this? They're having trouble. Dang, I wanted to watch it one more time. Girl, put your boobs away. What the heck? Can we stop her? It's just... I can't find it now. I'm so sorry. Hold on, we'll close this. Let me go back to where I was. But was that dog was worth the wait. Like, it was worth the whole show. And if you don't think so, I don't know why. Okay, hold on. We got to get back to my channel because I can't see anything that's going on. Okay, close all that. And here we go. That face just the best thing you've ever seen? You know what? I do like Power Slap. In fact, I don't like it like as an activity that I would do, but I think we should bring it to the floor. Like when Congress is voting and debating on stuff. And so, like when AOC's getting her black preacher voice on, and I'm telling you, I'm like, what? You're a white girl. Would you stop it? None of us is buying that you're suddenly a black Southern Baptist preacher. Would you quit with your drama? She's so ridiculous. I just am so insulted by her thinking that we're buying all of this. And it's so funny because the young people are like, she's so genuine. She's such a warrior. I'm like, she's so full of crap. Are you kidding me with this? I'm amazed that people can't see it. But yeah, I would pay, like, her and Marjorie Taylor Greene are debating something, and they can't come to any kind of reasonable cooperative agreement, and so then it comes down to a power slap. I mean, would you not pay to see that? I would totally pay. It's probably just I need to work out some of my own angst. I would pay to see Chuck Schumer and Jim Jordan in a power slap. Pay money to see it. I'd pay money to see Donald Trump and Joe Biden in a power slap. Even if Joe won, I would laugh. I know. I need to work on it. This totally, you're like, Penny, were you here for the whole 3 hours before this? Be good. I can't do it. Wouldn't it? You guys admit it. It would be funny. Lady, be good. Admit it. Cory Booker and who else? Cory Booker. Let's go with somebody older. Give me an older female senator. I can't think of anybody. Isn't that funny? You guys suck too. You can't think of anybody. Who are the women? Why can I not think of? Oh, who's the little Hispanic lady from Texas? She's got multiple names. Super cute. Her and Cory Booker. I think Cory Booker flatten her. They could opt out. Like maybe we could all vote on the pairing, because you wouldn't want it to be too uneven. Like maybe Maxine Waters. Oh, we could do Maxine, and you'd have to pick somebody really old from the Republican side. I don't know. Maxine's spunky. She probably put a hurting on somebody. And I don't think we should have intergender slap wars, women and women and men. Actual Boebert and Pelosi. No, that's not fair, because Pelosi's super old. Boebert and Cory Booker, sure. Boebert and AOC. Boebert and who's the Somalia lady? I can't think of her name. And then who's the one that's over the banking thing that has no idea how banking works? I don't know why I can't think of any. Amy Klobuchar? Oh, nice. Yes. That is a great matchup. Elizabeth Warren, and we may have to include some guys. I don't think we've got enough ladies there. Elizabeth Warren. And Boebert, I would pay for that. Ilhan Omar, yes. I'm telling you, I think Ilhan Omar and Boebert or MTG, that's going to be a fight. That they're not going to stop at slapping. They're going to be on the floor. It would be so funny to watch, and it would just prove the spectacle that is Congress. They're just a ridiculous bunch of people, and I just think, you know what, I think you could get people to tune in for votes if you did that. People would be like, okay, I'm going to read the legislation tomorrow. There's going to be a slap fight. Is that what you call it? It's not a slap fight. It's called a power slap. Thank you. There's going to be a power slap on Tuesday between Boebert and Ilhan Omar. Whoever wins gets to advance their legislation. I would read the legislation and I would tune in for that. I know, it's like a bloodlust. Isn't that crazy? I shouldn't do that, but I would do it. Minnesota is full of all those ones. Yeah, we won't get into. I did a story on Minnesota and the Somalia people cheating the paycheck protection thing and the feeding program. They were defrauding the government for money for a feeding program for all the kids that were missing school. And these people are tied to Ilhan Omar, and they had previously been in trouble for running a daycare scam where they were and I don't know how they were doing this, but they were getting the daycare assistance money from the state fraudulently somehow to the tune of millions of dollars. And these are people, again, that are tied to Ilhan Omar. Not many like her here in Minnesota. How does she keep? Well, I guess her district. Her district is very. A lot of people from Somalia are there, so I guess there's enough to keep her in. I don't. I'll have to look at the demographics of her district. She's another one that got caught with a bunch of ballots. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, there's that. I mean, I assume that people vote someone in, but do they? Who knows these days? It's funny. I can remember people telling me years ago that they didn't vote because we don't really choose who wins. And I was pretty Pollyanna back then. And I was like, oh, please, come on. Um, that's crazy. Of course we pick them. And now I'm like, holy crap, we don't. And pardon me for saying that. I'm trying not to say holy crap. I'm trying not to put holy in front of anything. Um, except for God. A lot of Somalis are onto her. Are they really? That's interesting. But what would they have to disagree with her on? I mean, unless I guess they are pretty traditional as far as their faith, because I know a lot of Somalis are Muslim. So I can see where this whole transgender CRT agenda would not sit well with them. Um, so maybe that's where she's losing them because she's pretty all for that. Gotta go hit the holy hay. You do that, Miss Bender. Much love to you. Okay, guys, it's 11:25. That's it. I'm gonna have to rest my voice for a couple days now. I did get. I told you for anybody who started late, my shoulder's still not good. I had some labs done today to see if I have some bigger kind of infection going on. I don't think that's what it is. I think they probably did not cut off enough of the collarbone. They did a Mumford procedure where they remove part of the collarbone so that it'll quit rubbing. Um, and so they did that. But if they don't remove enough, you'll have a lot of clicking. And I'm wondering if there's some damage to that brachial or axillary nerve because I'm losing range of motion. So I could, like a week after surgery, I could do this and over my head and do up my bra, do my hair. And I wasn't supposed to, but I could. And now, if I've got my arm straps, I can't go anywhere with it. But um, if I try to raise it just at my side, it'll tremble. The whole muscle trembles. There's positions like I cannot reach across me. I can't put my cup to my mouth with my left hand. And I could do that before. So to me, I'm curious to see if maybe there's a little brachial nerve damage. We can do an EMG and figure that out. But a friend of mine got me in with one of the top shoulder guys in the country. He wrote a textbook on shoulder surgeries. He's run clinical trials, all kinds of stuff. I mean, I've read his work. He's sharp. And so they usually won't see people until they're a year post-op. But this friend of mine talked to him and he's agreed to see me. So that's good. I'm hoping he'll tell me, yeah, there's a brachial nerve or an axillary nerve issue, but that's going to get better with time. Keep taking your reduced alpha lipoic acid, your high dose B vitamins, because those help nerve. Lady be good. Those help nerve remyelination. You weren't here last time. Last week we talked about, I'm going to write this down. I put it in the thing last week, but I want to make sure you get it. Just for anybody who knows, this is something we've talked about openly before. Lady Be Good has a family member who has transverse myelitis, which is a demyelination of nerves in the spine. And she's been looking for any kind of remedies for that. And so, hold on, let me go to Amazon. I want to give her this because she's here. And if any of you have got problems with MS or Parkinson's, I would look into this. Reduced sodium alpha lipoic. But it is shown to remyelinate, and I think this is important. And you want the reduced variety. It is this one. Let me get this. I know you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm going to get it for you. Is there a share there anyway? There it is. Copy. All right, let me come back here and give this to you. Here you go, sweetie. Alpha lipoic acid, and this is the one you want. It's 600 milligrams a day. You can take it twice a day. I am not giving medical advice. I'm just telling you what I'm doing. You would always, of course, want to check with your pharmacist and your doctor. And then high dose B vitamins, and you want a methylated B complex. Anyone will be fine. Methylated doesn't have to be expensive because a lot of people have trouble with methylation. So We were wondering if we could get his doctor to prescribe clemistine under the right to try. Okay, you don't need clemistine for right to try. Clemistine is already an approved drug. It is available by prescription. And if you can't get it by prescription, you can have it compounded. So I take ketotifen, which in this country is only available as an eye drop. It is a mast cell stabilizer. And so what I did was I called a pharmacist that does compounding, and I said, hey, I need to take 2 milligrams of ketotifen. Can't remember if it's 2 milligrams twice a day or 1 milligram twice a day. Can you get the ingredients for that and compound it for me? And they did. And so I have ketotifen pills that aren't available in the United States, but they compounded them for me. Yes, you will have to have a prescription for sure, unless you can get. Did we look to see if you could get clemistine? So you guys, for people who don't know, clemistine fumarate is an antihistamine that was shown to induce remyelination. So when you've got MS or transverse myelitis or Parkinson's or any number of other dementia, what you have is there's this thing called the myelin sheath. So I want you to think of like an electrical cord in your house, and it's got that rubber cord over the top. So that's what the myelin sheath is like. It's this fatty covering over the nerves, and the nerve impulses travel across the myelin sheath. So if the myelin sheath gets torn down because you're taking cholesterol medicines that degrade the cholesterol, that fat is cholesterol on the nerve. This is why I refuse to take a statin, because it removes cholesterol all over the body and it causes demyelination. And this is in large part, I think, probably what is leading to people getting MS and dementia, because we're giving statins constantly, and statins remove cholesterol from the brain, and you need cholesterol in your brain. So the clemistine fumarate was shown to help with rebuilding that myelin sheath. So does high-dose methylated B vitamins, and so does sodium-reduced alpha-lipoic acid helps remyelinate. Doctors won't write prescriptions for something you don't need, but you do need it. You know what I would do? I wouldn't go see a doctor. I would go see a nurse practitioner, because I couldn't get a doctor to write me for ketotifen, even though there's just data, and it's used in other countries all the time as an oral pill for asthma and for mast cell stabilization. We just don't have it here. And it's not that it's expensive or anything like that. I mean, I got a month's worth for like $60. But I have a nurse practitioner who, if I show her data, and I find nurse practitioners are much more open to that. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't ask for it for allergies. I would show them the data on remyelination because it's a safe drug. So this is how I would approach it. I would see if I could find a nurse practitioner, because they're just a lot more likely to listen to you. They're a lot more likely to read data, at least in my experience. And so what I did was I went to my nurse practitioner and I said, I mean, I had to look around. I've been with a doctor who wouldn't do it I've only had this drug for a month, so it's taken a long time. I mean, through all of those 18 episodes of nearly dying and being on the ventilator, we couldn't get anybody to prescribe it. But now I have it. Now that I'm out of that, we used it to help prevent a mast cell reaction from surgery. But I just went to her and I showed her the data, and I said, here's the data. This is used in other countries. It's a commonly used drug. It is approved for the stabilization of mast cells and for eosinophilic asthma. I have both of those. Could you write that for me? And she was like, yeah, sure. I was amazed. I'm like, what? She said, yeah, sure. And I said, okay, I'll have to find a pharmacy that can build it for you. And so I called the pharmacy and asked them to shoot the recipe over to my doctor or my nurse practitioner, so she could write a prescription for it. It took about a week to get it in, but I have it. So yeah, look around. It wasn't luck. It was searching. And actually, the way I found this nurse practitioner was that my brother, who I have guardianship over, sees one of the other nurse practitioners in the office, and I was really, really impressed with her. And so that's how I switched. I bought some from India, but he was afraid to take it. I suppose I don't blame him. I would be afraid to take it too, because, you don't know what you're getting over there. I don't know how you verify if those are legit pharmacies or not. You know what's interesting, though? I wonder why clemistine, antihistamines, induce remyelination. I would also consider a parasite cleanse. I am learning so much about parasites and how common they are and how missed they are. Do you have this info regarding mast cell treatment and nerve remyelination on a website? I don't, but if you just Google MAST, M-A-S-T, cell activation disorder and ketotifen, all kinds of stuff will come up. It's not hard to find. The issue that Lady Be Good is dealing with is more complex and hard to find information on, but this one's easy. That induced remyelination. I just wanted to see if that was from 216, and that's on the clemistine. That's so old. Clemistine. Novel molecular leads for the prevention and damage. Anticholinergic compound with clemistine, same thing. Wait, no, they got another one. Benzotropine. It's 2019. I'm going to just copy this for you. You guys, this is all we're going to do from this point. So if you don't want to listen to this, feel free to leave. But feel free to stay too. I would love to have you. Hold on. I just didn't want to. Okay, I don't know if that's the right. What just happened here? Okay, go back. Here we go. I was trying to copy that. Here's one for you, hun. Hopefully that opens up all the way. Let me look, make sure. Sometimes it'll just give you this little thing that says, we're not going to tell you what this article says. No, this is good. Okay, here you go on that one. Paste. And that may be a generic name for that drug. I don't know. You know what? I need to call and check on my dad. I texted him this week and he was just kind of busy, or I don't know. He wasn't very talkative, but I need to call him. By mistake, people with MS figured out clemistine. Yeah, put their symptoms in remission. It was pretty high dose, but yeah. Then the FDA, they didn't take it off the market. They just made it prescription. You just can't get it over the counter. Yeah, I know you're not having. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. She's been searching for a while for some help for this family member. Hold on, help me stop it. I'm having a fight with myself over here. I just was curious to see if there were any other interesting. They're also talking. They've got there's a clinical trial April 26th of 2022 that was enrolling. I don't know if it's still enrolling, and it's metformin and clemistine. So I'm going to post that one for you too, and I'll keep looking. You know, I don't stop looking. So look at those things and see what you think. I don't know everything. I'm just willing to search. That's it. You know, it's so funny. I'm no smarter than your doctor or your nurse, most likely. I'm just willing to listen and try to get the whole story and ask a million questions. I mean, you know that. We talked at length. I asked you a million things. Lyme disease, all kinds of things. And so the most recent thing I'm looking at, don't anybody freak out, is turpentine. So when I was a little girl, I can remember my grandmother, when we would get sick, would take flannel and she would put turpentine and something else on it. I think it was like a oil or something. And she would put maybe castor oil and turpentine, and she would put it on our chests or our necks. Like I would always get really swollen lymph nodes, and it always worked. And I never knew what it was. And then I remember her saying turpentine. And so like the turpentine that you buy at Lowe's or whatever, that is not something you want to use. That is a byproduct of paper manufacturing. But regular turpentine is just made from pine oils, and it has two terpenes, I think alpha something and beta. I can't remember what the terpenes are called, but these terpenes are really good for getting rid of parasites. And it used to be, back in the day when my grandmother was alive, every Friday she would give her kids turpentine and sugar, and it just gets rid of whipworms and pinworms and tapeworms and every liver flukes, all kinds of stuff. And the thing that's different with turpentine versus like ivermectin is ivermectin will only go after one particular parasite, and only in the gut. And when the parasites are in the presence of ivermectin, those particular parasites can actually navigate up to the lungs. And that's the problem. With turpentine, they cannot navigate away from it because turpentine is a small molecule, and it actually, yeah, I think that might be the one I ordered. The turpentine is such a small molecule, like ivermectin is too, but it doesn't get every parasite. But turpentine is such a small molecule that it actually can cross the blood-brain barrier. So when worms try to escape up there, it can get them. It's also good against bacterial infections. Apparently, they had some really good success with COVID with the use of turpentine. So don't anybody do it. I'm just looking into it, like I looked into the Lugol's iodine for a long time before I ever talked about it. I tested it on me and Don. I mean, I'm really careful. I did all of the research. I'm doing the same thing for the turpentine. I may come away saying, I don't think this is safe, but I ordered it. I'm going to see what I think, and then I'll let you guys know. I think I need this, but I don't know how to spell those medicines. Oh, okay, sweetie, hold on. Do you have this info? So, ketotifen. And what's the other one? And you're looking at mast cell activation syndrome. So you want to get diagnosed with that first. Good luck. You're going to need an allergist who knows something about it. And let me find you a site for that, just so you've got some more data. What is this for? Okay. Hold on, Kay. Let me see what I can find for you, love. Mast cell activation symptoms and treatment. I think this is the site I like. I never can remember if this is it. So here's a thing that's got like a quiz, and it'll talk about symptoms, and this, you might find this helpful. I'm going to put this on the Rumble chat too. You're not going to be able to see it in a minute. I'm actually going to put it in the regular comment section. Info that can be seen after this is over on mast cell activation syndrome symptoms treatment. All right, so that's in the regular chat if you guys are looking for that. And then let me put it over here for my folks on Facebook and Rumble, or YouTube, sorry. Come on now. Paste. There you go. Well, that's weird. Okay, so there's that for you. It looks like that's going to show up. It's so funny. That's going to show up on as a YouTube link. I'm wondering, hey, Kay, can you see that link that I just posted? Just give me a thumbs up so I know you've got it. I don't know where that's the craziest thing. Let me see. You're watching on, let me find out where Kay's watching from. Kay is on YouTube. Okay, hold on, sweetie. I'm just going to make sure that goes into that YouTube chat because I don't want to go to bed wondering if you've got that or not. Well, good grief. And then that's the last thing. Hold on, let me find it. And I got to pray us out. Don't let me forget that. Here we go. I'm going to put this in the chat real quick for you on YouTube. I have to go in a different server because I'm signed in under a different account. Where is your white hat? There it is. Hold on. Shh. I just want to make sure that went through. And yeah, it did go through. It's up there. Kate, you should be able to see it. You got it. Okay, good. It's there and goes there. Awesome. And then Kate, or is it Kay? Yeah, Kay in the, hold on, let me put my contact information in here for you. I'll go in after the stream and put it in the description for sure. It's Witthealth. Never can remember my email address. Hold on. I'm hurrying. Witthealth coach at Gmail. And then my website is Witthealth, and you can find all my contact information there. Coaching. Witthealthcoaching.com. There you go. All right, guys, let me pray us out. Let me close out the screen here. And get back up here where I can see you guys and find the rest of my screens that I dumped so I could see that. This Stream narrative. There we go. All right, here we go. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day and just for just allowing me to share you with the world. I mean, what an honor that is. That's just seems, I don't know. You think way more of me than I do. And that's awesome. And I just would thank you for everybody that's here and everybody that isn't here and that would come to watch this video later. And I pray that my heart would come across and that if there is anybody who's struggling with gender issues, that they would see my heart and would not feel attacked or scared to ask a question or express a concern or just share anger or frustration. You know, I do want to hear both sides and I do want to try to understand people and be effective in communicating and sharing truth with people. And I just thank you for the opportunity and the platform to do this. As much as I just rail against YouTube, I'm thankful that that is a platform that I'm still on. We'll see for how long. And I just pray that you would, you know, put a hedge of protection around our YouTube page, our YouTube channel, and keep our information from, you know, coming on the radar of the people who are, you know, the overlords, because we don't want to get thrown off. And we just thank you for Rumble, even though it's frustrating while they're building it. We just thank you for Rumble and the people who work hard there and have given us a place to be able to share the truth and build community. That's just been awesome. Father, I thank you for everybody here tonight. And I just pray that you would bless them tenfold, coming and going, and help me be a blessing to them in their lives and help them bless others. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, guys. Love you whole big bunches. You just don't even know. If I could hug you, I would. I'm telling you, I mean, we probably only have 4 or 5 people show up, but I would love to do like a reunion. I don't know what we'd be reing because we've not ever unioned before other than here. But it would just be so fun to get my arms around some of you people. I would love it. Lady Be Good says, thank you for all your help. I'm also sending my Marine son info on how to overcome the side effects of the 2 jabs. Oy vey. He was commanded to get. Thank you for that as well. Yeah, also the FLCCC has a protocol for the jab injured, and he can get prescription drugs through them that he might need. You know what? It would be, man, I wish I had a link to a, see, I really think for your family member that we need to determine if mast cells are an issue, because mast cell degranulation will cause all kinds of problems. And we know that mast cells, hold on, I'm going to pull that for you. I'm Googling mast cell activation in transverse myelitis. Yeah, it's definitely implicated in, what's the date on that? That's 2012. Let's do this one. There's definitely mast cell implication in transverse myelitis, in MS, conditions often comorbid with mast cell diseases. Oh, wow. Let's pull this up. Sorry, guys. I didn't think we were going to get into anything else, but, you know, it happens. As long as I still have a little bit of voice, we'll do it. Let's stop it. Present. There we go. Share screen. Share screen. Share screen. What the? Almost gust. Why will it not? Settings. Share screen. There we go. All right. Share. Okay. Let me put this in the chat too. I'd love that too, AJ. Paste. That's the thing that I just posted is the screen that I'm sharing. Okay. So these are conditions often comorbid, meaning occurring with mast cell diseases, chronic inflammatory response syndrome, fibromyalgia, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, Gulf War illness. Hold on, here. Well, where'd it go? Lost it. Son of a gun. There we go. Irritable bowel syndrome, interstitial cystitis, Conus syndrome. Conus syndrome, remember we talked about that with the shots with people having sudden cardiac death. Multiple chemical sensitivity syndrome, myalgic. And remember, you guys, I said that I thought Conus syndrome is part of what is killing people suddenly. And interesting, look what we have here. We have Konus syndrome occurring with mast cell issues. So that's really interesting. Multiple chemical sensitivity syndrome, myalgic encephalomyelitis, chronic fatigue syndrome, post-Lyme syndrome, POTS syndrome, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Isn't that interesting? I wonder how many of these things that we think are psychological are actually mast cell issues, because they affect every part of your body. Common symptoms in patients with mast cell mediator disorders: chest pain, hypotension, low blood pressure, hypotensive syncope, low blood pressure that causes fainting, tachycardia, fast heart rate, angioedema, facial swelling, dermatographism. That's where when you scratch your skin, you maybe scratch a letter or a shape into your skin and that gets red and raised. That's dermatographism. Flushing, turning red, pruritus, itching, urticaria pigmentosa is like a brownish rash that kids will get if they have mast cell issues. Adults can get it too. Gastrointestinal, abdominal cramping or crumping, pain, bloating, diarrhea. A lot of people that have IBS actually have mast cell activation. And once you treat them with like cromolyn, that IBS will clear up. Esophagitis, inflammation of the esophagus, nausea, vomiting, bone or muscle pain, degenerative disc disease, so where your discs in your spine are kind of collapsing, osteoporosis, osteopenia, so problems with bone density, nasoocular, so nose and eyes, nasal congestion, and I know you guys probably know a lot of these words, but I'd never assume. Pruritus, itching, so itching of the eyes, it's one of my main symptoms lately. Tearing, neurologic, headache, memory and concentration difficulties, brain fog, paresthesias, altered sensations in your body, like I'm having paresthesia with this nerve damage I've got. Peripheral neuropathy, peripheral is a way, so these nerves, like people have pain in their feet, things like that. Respiratory, hoarseness, sore throat, stridor, that's that weird high-pitched breathing sound that happens when the throat is swollen, really swollen, like you're anaphylaxing. Throat swelling, wheezing. Wheezing is a sound that is made when you expire, so when you breathe out, there'll be like this whistling sound, that's wheezing. Systemic anaphylaxis, so full-blown allergy that can cause respiratory failure, and fatigue. Those are just some. That's a very small list. But I hope this is a helpful link for you guys. And then they've got cell triggers, acetylcholine. There's all kinds of things. There's drugs that can cause issues. A lot of this is going to be way more than I can explain to you. These are mediators, things that calm it down. I want to see if they gave us any more good charts. Yeah, so you can have systemic mastocytosis, which is a bad one. That's indolent and aggressive. I don't actually even have that kind. Cutaneous, which is just skin. Mast cell leukemia, mast cell sarcoma. So there are cancers that are caused by mast cells. Extracutaneous, so out of the skin, mastocytoma. Monoclonal mast cell activation syndrome. I'll have to look at that one. Mast cell mediator disorders, idiopathic. Monoclonal without abnormal clustering. I think that's the one that I have. Non-clonal. I think that they were trying to determine whether I have monoclonal or idiopathic. I want to say they settled with idiopathic, but I was working with doctors who don't really know anything about it, so I don't put a lot of stock in that. And then there are, these people who have mast cell issues commonly will have hypersensitivity reactions to bug bites or stings, food, allergies to vancomycin, opioids, taxanes, muscle relaxants, adenosine, not something you'd take regularly, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, and then mast cell hyperplasia, chronic infections, neoplasia, autoimmune conditions, stuff like that. So there's all that. I will actually give that a good read and see if there's more information. Look at that. There's the algorithm for diagnosing it. And I had, what's funny is my stuff was normal. My bone marrow biopsy was normal. But I still I meet the criteria for a mast cell disorder. I think based on tryptase levels and a history of anaphylaxis. So anyway, that's a really good, I'm going to keep that. Hold on. Oh, rain's getting me. Copy. Okay, I got it. Stick that bad boy on a notepad. All right, guys, that's all I've got. I'm going to add this to a note real quick so I don't lose it. If you have questions, save them for next week or email me. Either way, I'm slow on email, but I do the best I can. Just know that that's not the only thing I do all day. Stop screen sharing. All right, let me make sure. What? Okay, that's weird. All right, well, what is doing that? Cancel. Okay, here we go. Okay, now that I figured out how to get out of that, I will see you guys next Friday. Hold on. Treat SIBO with what? I missed it. We weren't talking about SIBO. But if you have SIBO, man, I would be curious about turpentine or chlorine dioxide. I have CIRS. Really? Hold on. Here's the link for you. And I'm going to put the link below too, because when I go away, so will that link. Oh, it won't. It's not giving me a place to do a comment. I'll have to do it after. All right, guys, that's it. That's all I've got. If you've got questions, Lady Be Good says, thank you for all the help. Have a great weekend. Be safe. I think that's it. I hope you guys learned something. I hope your heart and your spirit were encouraged. And given just that little oomph that you need to push past this idea of just, oh, screw it, they're all crazy, I can't help. I just don't want you guys to lose hope. I don't want you to become pessimistic. I don't want you to be black-pilled for sure. We're in this together. We're in this together. You are not alone. You're not crazy. Okay? You're not some old fuddy-duddy that just wants to ruin everybody's fun. These are serious issues, and you are right to be concerned, and you're right to be angry and frustrated. And that's normal, and that's okay. And a lot of us feel that way. And so we need to get together and talk about it so you don't implode, okay? So, if you're feeling like it's just getting to be too much for you, reach out. This is a good group. People will share their emails with you. I mean, if you don't realize, they're very, very friendly. And since they're all struggling, they like to have someone to bounce that stuff off of too. So I would encourage you to reach out to each other, to me, because building community is really the only way we fix any of this. We have to be working together, okay? All right, guys. It's been a good night. I've enjoyed talking to you. I'm going to go rest this awful, icky sounding voice and be sharp for you guys on Friday. And I will check on my dad this weekend and give you guys an update on him. And that's all I've got for you. Love you whole big bunches. The Nurse Penny Show, out.